Good morning. Welcome to the Senate chamber. Today is Friday, May 13, 2022. We are here this morning to begin the hearing on articles of impeachment, House Resolution number 22-14. I would like to welcome all the public that are here before us, and also to the members and the staff. And at this time, I call this hearing to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Cruz,
Here.
Senator De Leon Guerrero,
Here.
Senator Hoku, Mr. President,
Gaigi.
Senator King Neighbors,
Gagi.
Senator Manglonia, Senator Kiruba, Senator Sablan, Senator Santos. Mr. President, 7 members are present, 2 are absent.
With 7 members present, 2 absent, we have a quorum to conduct this hearing. And clerk, let the record reflect that Senators Justo Kitugua and Venus Blonde hereby excused from this hearing. And with that, the chair recognizes Senator Carl King Neighbors to offer a motion to adopt today's hearing agenda.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to officially offer a motion for the adoption of today's agenda. So move.
Second.
All those in favor to adopt today's meeting agenda, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Division on the floor, clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Cruz,
Yes.
Senator De Leon Guerrero,
No.
Senator Hoku,
Yes.
Senator King Neighbors,
Yes.
Senator Manglonia,
No.
Senator Santos. Mr. President,
Hanggan.
Mr. President, 4 members voting yes, 3 members voting no, 2 absent.
With 4 members voting yes and 3 no, the ayes have it. Today's meeting agenda is hereby adopted. And before I recognize the council and the witness or to present their presentation today, I'd like to offer a few remarks. Today is the opening of the Senate hearing of impeachment of Governor Ralph De Leon Guerrero Torres pursuant to Article 2, Section 8 of the Commonwealth Constitution. The Senate has been presented with 6 articles of impeachment against Governor Torres by the House of Representatives. In this hearing, the Senate will hear testimony and review evidence as required by the impeachment rules. This hearing will continue every business day until its conclusion. I cannot stress too strongly how important it is for the members of this chamber and the public to conduct themselves in accordance with the appropriate decorum of this august body. Just as we have done through the entire process, we will continue to strictly adhere to the Senate rules and the impeachment rules. And before the introduction of witnesses and evidence, council will be given 30 minutes to make their opening statement. Following the opening statement, council may call its first witness. Pursuant to the impeachment rules, each witness will be administered by oath or the oath by the Senate clerk. Council will conduct the examination of the witness. During the examination, the members will not interrupt counsel or witness. If a member has a question of the witness, the question should be written in the question slips provided and passed to me. I will ask the questions of the witness pursuant to Rule 23B and D of the Senate impeachment rule. At no time should the members address the counsel or witness. After the counsel has called their last witness, counsel will be afforded an additional 30 minutes to make their closing statements. It is my duty as the Senate President under the Senate rules, Rule 2, Section 2D, as the presiding hearing officer of these impeachment proceedings, to maintain order and proper decorum. If a member refuses to observe the decorum of this institution, I will establish and enforce decorum by all means granted to me by the Senate rules. No member shall interrupt the witness or counsel. No member shall interrupt another member while that member holds the floor. All questions from members must be written on the question slips provided. For members of the public who have joined us, either to provide public comment or to observe these historic proceedings, welcome. Due to the nature of the proceedings, I will require strict adherence to the rules governing our public comment. We value the public comment. However, it is the duty of those wishing to give comment to comply with the rules. The public comment period will take place after the closing statement of counsel. Public comment will take place after the presentation of witness to protect the witnesses from intimidation or attempts to unduly influence the testimony. In addition, the interest of scheduling of witnesses and counsel, the Senate must begin the entry of evidence at a set time. Importantly, during the public comment period, please respect the institution and the occasion for which you are given to comment. There's no place for the use of profanity, accusatory language, or any airing of general grievance. I will immediately terminate any speaker who chooses to violate these reasonable restrictions. In addition, the public comment is strictly to follow the published agenda. If a comment begins to address topics that are not part of the agenda, I will ask the speaker to restrict their comments to our agenda. If the speaker continues to address issues outside of our agenda, I will terminate that speaker's time for public comment. And again, I ask that we keep our comments, public comments, within 5 minutes. I will ask our staff assigned to the Senate to remind you of the time if you approach that limit, and we'll direct the staff to end the comment in excess of 5 minutes. Again, thank you for your participation in our democracy. At this time, moving on, our order of business, item 4, hearing on the articles of impeachment. At this time, I call on the council representative for the impeached official. State your privilege.
Thank you. Before we proceed on the next item of agenda, I'd like to ask a legal question. I am concerned about if there's any questions from the members of this body. We are the trier of facts. That's who we are. And in looking at the Senate rules for impeachment, pursuant to Rule 23, which you had cited earlier, and that we shall write our questions on this sheet of paper. On Rule 23B, it says all motions, objections, requests, or other matters pertaining to procedure to the articles of impeachment or to the impeachment hearing, including questions with respect to the admissibility of evidence made orally or in writing by a party. It is the word by a party shall be addressed to and decided by the presiding hearing officer. And that is my understanding this morning of your clear instructions, that after everything is presented, if we have any question, to submit it to you on this piece of paper. On the rules of impeachment that was adopted by the Senate body, under the definitions, party means the House of Representatives or the official who has been impeached by the House of Representatives. I'd like some clarification for council this morning. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I recognize Councilor Bermudez.
If I understand the question or the clarification, Senator De Leon Guerrero, you're asking is it the definition of party or?
My understanding this morning is that if we have any questions for the witness or the council, that we must submit our questions here on this piece of paper in front of us, and we shall submit it over to the presiding officer of this proceeding this morning and for any other subsequent days moving forward. And in looking quickly on the definition of party, it does not strike me as we are considered a party in this particular definition pursuant to the Senate rules that is governing this particular process this morning and moving forward.
That's correct. Party, the members of the Senate is not a party. The only parties to this impeachment that's allowed today is the impeached official's attorney. There's the other party could have been the House, but they're barred from appearing. So party does not include members of the legislature, of the Senate, I'm sorry.
So in confirming that I do not need to submit my question here on this piece of paper, and pass it on to the presiding officer because I am not a party of this proceeding. I am a trier of facts for this proceeding. I am not a party.
You're
that
right,
correct?
you're not a party, but you're incorrect when you're saying that you don't have to submit if you want to ask a question, then the rule says that you must write your question in that sheet, pass it on to the president, and it will be the presiding officer that asks the question.
Okay, thank you, Senator Edith. We shall proceed. Council,
Privilege, Mr. President.
I'm going to give you 2 minutes, Senator
Thank you, Mr.
Santos.
President. It's very simple. If there's no objection by the members, I would like to move item 5 of our agenda this morning, public comments, to go before item 4, a hearing on the articles of impeachment to hear the sentiments
Senator
of the general
Santos.
public.
I'm going to decline your request for changing of the order of business. We've already adopted the agenda. So at this time, I recognize counsel for the impeached official to present your
President, privilege.
conduct your presentation today. We are on item 4.
Mr. President,
Proceed.
privilege.
Proceed, Counsel Ton. You have the floor, Counsel.
President Tisina, if I may send a question, please? Just a 30-second question or less?
If it's related to
Yes.
okay,
Mis-
go
Mr.
ahead.
Mr. President, I'm quite confused here because we're going to be asking questions, but there's no prosecutor. I wouldn't know.
Senator Po, you're irrelevant. It's almost causas that you know that thing has come and gone. I understand where this is going.
Well,
And
I'm just,
well, you asked for recognition, and I did because it's relevant to the proceedings, and what you just stated is irrelevant. We've already made that discussion numerous times prior to this
Right,
hearing.
right, but-
Today's hearing is to hear the articles of
yeah,
impeachment.
and that's why, Mr.
Granted-
President, I'm asking like that because there's no prosecution. Can I bring up in my question issues that were discussed in the House hearing to further have the witness explain
Senator
the
Manglonia,
activity? Is that
well,
something?
that opportunity is going to come as soon as the articles are presented. So that opportunity is going to materialize once the counsel for the impeached official present his its case on the respective articles that's before the House articles of impeachment resolution. So with that, again, Counsel Ogun.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I may proceed. Good morning, Mr. President, honorable senators. Once again, my name is Anthony H. Huggan, and along with my co-counsel, Gilbert Burnbridge, we are here on behalf of Governor Ralph Anthony de Leon Guerrero Torres. And I would first like to thank you all once again for the time and attention that you are giving to this monumental task before you. We are here today for a hearing on the articles of impeachment lodged against my client, Governor Torres, by the House of the Representatives. The purpose of this hearing is for the House to present witnesses and evidence to prove their allegations made against Governor Torres. Up to this point, I have identified a number of reasons that justify voting no on all 6 of the articles of impeachment. To review, first, the House failed procedurally because it did not comply with the House rules and the Senate rules when it impeached Governor Torres. The House also failed legally because the articles of impeachment do not comply with the Constitution and laws of the Commonwealth. Today, you will hear about how the House failed substantively because it cannot meet its burden of proving each of the articles of impeachment today by clear and convincing evidence. I am confident that by the end of this hearing, there will be no doubt in your mind that this has been a failed impeachment effort on all fronts. Under Rule 5 of the impeachment rules, the burden of proof for each article of impeachment rests with the impeachment prosecutor. The rule also requires each article of impeachment to be proven by clear and convincing evidence. Finally, the rule notes that the clear and convincing evidence standard is greater than the preponderance of the evidence standard, but less than the beyond a reasonable doubt one. This is an image of the evidence standards, organized from the highest to the lowest and depicted as a pyramid. It is set up this way because while the lower standards are easy to meet, as the allegations get more serious, so do the standards of proof. And as a result, it is much harder to meet the standards at the top than it is to meet the standards at the bottom. And as you can see, the clear and convincing standard is just below beyond a reasonable doubt, which is the highest standard of proof and what the court typically requires for criminal cases. In this matter, the House has chosen not to enter any appearance, and as a result, we are now without an impeachment prosecutor. The House has also chosen not to file an impeachment record or any other evidence in support of their articles. And as a result, senators, not a single piece of supporting evidence is before you today. Honorable members, now is the only time for the House to prove up its articles against Governor Torres with clear and convincing evidence. Not during public comments or in press releases or in news interviews, but right here, right now, before you. And without an impeachment prosecutor or any evidence, the House cannot prove each impeachment article by clear and convincing evidence. And since there is nothing before you, Governor Torres could technically just sit back and do nothing at all. And still, after this hearing, when you are asked the question, does clear and convincing evidence exist to sustain each article of impeachment against Governor Torres to remove him from the office of the governor? No will be the only fair and just answer. However, in fairness and justice, the Senate and our people of the Commonwealth deserve to hear the truth. That there is also a significant amount of evidence that directly contradicts what the House has alleged against the governor in its articles of impeachment. And as such, I am prepared today to show you a few examples of just how baseless these articles of impeachment really are. Over the course of this hearing, please keep in mind that the House was often aware of the evidence that is being presented. It will soon become apparent to you that what the House did was cherry-pick facts that supported their claims made in the articles of impeachment and conveniently ignore the ones that didn't. I would like to begin with Article 3. Mr. President, if I may have a short recess just to prepare myself to call the first witness.
So granted.
Thank you.
We're hearing Council Ogun. Did you
I'm ready to proceed. Thank
ready
you,
to
Mr.
proceed?
President. Governor Torres calls its first witness to the stand, Mr. Epifanio E. Cabrera, Jr.
Mr. Cabrera, before you take your seat, the clerk is going to administer the oath.
Epifanio E. Cabrera Jr.
Do solemnly swear that the testimony I shall give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
You may take your seat.
That's fine.
Okay, the way the mic works, if it's red, then it's hot. I mean, it's on. So to turn it on, just press and then turn it back off if you're done. Thank you.
That's fine. Good morning, Mr. Cabrera. Good morning. A little awkward. We're sitting sideways, but we'll make this work. Just turn this on for when you speak, please. Okay. Can you please state your name for the record?
My name is Epifanio E. Cabrera Jr.
Mr. Cabrera, what is your current occupation?
I am the Grants Administrator for the Office of Grants Management under the Office of the Governor.
And were you at the same position on or around 2017?
Yes, I assumed the position on June 2015.
On or around 2017, were you ever tasked by Governor Torres to participate in a travel review committee?
Yes, that is correct. On June 6, 2017, a memo was issued, concurred by the governor to conduct the revised travel regulations.
And so the purpose of the committee was to update the regulations?
Yes, that is correct. We've been receiving a lot of complaints from governmental officials stating that the per diem is not enough when they travel off island, and it's cumbersome to their travel arrangements. So we took it upon ourselves to try and see how we can revise the regulations for our government employees.
And who else was on the committee?
There were several of us on the committee. First and foremost, chairwoman was Vicky Beneventi, myself, Clyde Marita, Frank Ada from Dilinar, Manny Pangilinan from Fish and Wildlife, Jay Spinetta from Grant's office, Jay Sanchez from Grant's office, Ezra Lizama from Grant's office, Vicky Maritita from travel section of finance. The SAA at that time was Shirley Camacho hyphenated Gomero.
And did you have any legal assistance in the committee?
Not per se, only after.
Okay. So in June 2017, is it correct that you sent a memo requesting for feedback on the travel regulations for the government?
Yes, we did, and we did receive some feedback.
Okay. And what did the committee do after it received all this feedback from the government agencies?
We analyzed and synthesized all the information and tried to figure out the best approach to implementing or drafting the new regulations.
Okay. At that time, did the draft regulations that you guys created allow the governor and lieutenant governor to travel premium class?
At that time when we drafted?
Yeah.
Can
when
you repeat
first
the question?
When you first drafted the regulations?
Yes. When we drafted the regulations, first class travel was inserted inside for the governor and lieutenant governor.
Why did the committee do that?
As the governor and the lieutenant governor, the head of state, we felt that it is best for the best interest of the government that these two individuals are well rested before they head to any meetings in DC or abroad, because they represent the state. And it's very important when they go to these meetings, and they should be well rested. It was consensus by the committee that they should receive first class travel status.
So after you did a first draft of the regulations, did it ever undergo legal review at that time?
Yes, it did.
Who reviewed them? Do you remember?
Yes. The Attorney General, Mr. Edward Manusan, received a copy via email of the regulations.
And did he ever respond or give you any feedback after reviewing them?
Yes, he did. He actually called me and Vicky up to his office, and we had a meeting about the regulations, and he provided his comments about what should be inserted else.
What did he recommend to be inserted?
He recommended that the Attorney General's office should also have, or himself should have, OR, or official representation ability or status during also trips, just like the governor and lieutenant governor. The OR is about $5,000 per se, according to finance.
And did he ever mention anything about the provisions allowing for first class travel?
No, he didn't. However, if I may, it was, or it still is, or it was bold-faced in the regulations for him to review.
You mentioned that Miss Vicky Beneventi was with you at the meeting?
Yes,
Yes, okay. And what happened after you spoke to AG about the travel regulations?
we went back and we took his comment and we went back to the committee and we inserted his recommendation. Not touching first-class travel because he didn't talk about that. He only asked for the OR.
Thank you, Mr. Cabrera. No further questions at this time, Mr. President.
Thank you, Council and Mr. Cabrera.
Unless they have any questions.
Yes, I was just going to say that. At this time, the chair recognizes any member to pose his or her question to the chair so that we may ask. Written. Give to start. Sulimog,
Just a moment, please, because we have a witness here, but it doesn't mention which article of impeachment we are
Article
addressing.
3.
Okay, Article 3.
The question should be based on which article we're discussing after the witness is done. So Article 3.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Sarge, Senator Cruz has a question. From Senator Cruz, and the question is addressed to Mr. Cabrera. After reviewing travel regulation by the AG, Mr. Manibusan, did AG Manibusan deny first class or business because it's in violation of 1 CMC section 70407F? And that's the statutory that the senator is referencing to. Council, you can assist perhaps if... So again, after reviewing travel regulation by the AG, did AG Manibusan deny first class or business because it's in violation of 1 CMC section 70407F?
Mr. Cabrera, can you answer that question?
Senator, with all due respect, the AG doesn't approve or disapprove travel. It's finance, technically, that certifies the funds, but there is a signature block at the bottom of the TA that allows for the travel to take place. So the AG has no, I'm going to say, jurisdiction in that aspect. It relies on finance too, Department of Finance.
If I may follow up.
Proceed.
I believe the question he's wondering is, when you met with the AG to
No.
discuss the travel regulations, did he specifically mention the statute or that the provision allowing for premium class travel violated that statute?
No. He never mentioned anything about first class.
And this was in 2017, correct?
That meeting with the AG?
Yes.
I think it's 2018.
2018. So that is after the statute was passed in 2007.
I mean, early, like January 2018.
Thank you.
Thank you. Here's a question from Senator Teresita Santos. Was the draft regulation adopted or became an official travel policy for the CNMA government? Did it ever made it to the codification process, I guess, if I may?
I'm gonna-
Mr. President, or
The question is, did that regulation that we've been discussing, or Mr. Cabrera presented, was it ever adopted to reflect today's doing business in travel?
I believe
Government
the
travel.
draft regulations were eventually adopted at the end of 2021.
So that is adopted?
Is that correct, Mr. Cabrera?
If I may, in 2018, as we concluded the draft regulations from the committee, the regulations were then forwarded to Ryan Camacho of Finance and Accounting. And then from then on, we lost communication with Finance. Finance took over the helm of the travel regulations because it's in the statute that they should be in charge. However, the committee did not reconvene per se with what is currently in the regulations. So to answer your questions, it was a draft by the committee forwarded to Finance, and Finance took over.
Thank you, Mr. Cabrera. Here's a question from Senator Edith Ilongguero. Do you happen to have a copy of the initial draft of the travel regulations? That's question number one.
Now,
Well, do you have a copy?
The answer is yes, Mr. President.
Okay. Okay, question number two. What is the status of the draft travel regulations?
As Mr. Cabrera just mentioned, after the committee did its draft regulations, it forwarded the draft to the Finance, and I believe Finance passed eventually the regulations in 2021.
Thank you. Okay, number three. Did the first class travel restriction remain intact to date?
If I may answer, Mr. President, the answer is no, because around 2020, the Office of the Public Auditor informed the AG's office and Finance that there was an issue with those travel regulations. And so eventually that matter was addressed, but it was flagged by OPA and not the Office of the Attorney General.
Members, although I'm almost expert in reading your handwriting, please be signing your name on the bottom so I can know. Senator, I have a question. We haven't entertained articles of impeachment number 1. So we need to stick to article of impeachment number 2. This is the line of questioning. So whoever is asking this, it's not going to happen now. Can we wait for it? Okay. So here's one from Senator Victor Hokup, addressed to Mr. Cabrera. Reviewing travel regulation, which branch of the government are considered to travel premium class, first and or business class? Is it just general, all 3 branches and autonomous agencies? Or is just for governor and lieutenant governor or the executive branch? I guess this is.
Well, to be clear, Mr. President, after OPA flagged the issue, it was removed from the regulations. But it was after OPA flagged the issue.
Can you? I need clarification on that. Well, first and foremost, we've made reference to the regulation that it was adopted in 2021.
Yes, I
So
believe 2020.
2021. Okay, we need some clarification on that, possible. But in that action to adopt the first class, stricken out, may or may not be stricken out. That's correct?
I may have the dates a little wrong, but I can explain what happened, the timeline of what happened. And this is outside the scope of Mr. Cabrera's testimony today.
I understand,
I can
Council,
explain
but you brought him up to witness with regards to the draft regulations. So these are the questions by the jurors right now. So we need
Yes, if you don't mind, I can
consistencies
answer.
in this in order for us to understand.
Yes, if you don't mind, I can answer, Mr. President.
Go for it.
Governor Torres formed a travel committee in 2017. That travel committee consisted of members all across the government, as you just heard from Mr. Cabrera. Those committee members decided to include first-class travel in its regulations, which they tried to update in order to have one uniform travel policy from finance. After they did the draft regulations, they presented it to the Attorney General for his review. He did not flag the first class issue, although it was in there, and they included it in there because they believed the governor and lieutenant governor should be able to travel first class on these really long trips, because often the day after they're going to meetings. They presented that draft regulation to AG Manibusan, and he did not advise them or anything about the first class travel provisions. Thereafter, the travel committee's work with the draft regulations ended, and it was passed on to finance, because finance is actually the agency that should promulgate those regulations. While finance was working to promulgate the regulations, the Office of the Public Auditor notified them, and I believe the House as well and the Senate, that there was an issue with that provision, first class travel, because it conflicted with the law. And so at that time, they changed it. And that eventually got adopted. So today, I don't believe they are included in the regulations. Is that correct, Mr. Cabrera? Do you know?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Okay, here's question number 2 from Senator Hokuk. Was there any branch of government being omitted, meaning removed, or not to qualify for premium, first, and or business class?
You're speaking about the draft regulations, correct?
Yes. Was there any branch of government being omitted or not to qualify for premium, first, and or business class?
Mr.
In
Cabrera?
the general context of government, it includes autonomous agencies, municipalities. Go ahead.
Yes, you're correct. But the draft regulations that the travel committee promulgated only it's spelled out in bold ink. The governor and lieutenant governor could travel premium class for the reasons that I just stated. So initially, those draft regulations only had the governor and lieutenant governor.
Okay. There's a request for a short recess, at which time I would request the gallery to clear. Who do you want to consult with? Okay. Okay. Just approach. No. Okay. Thank you. We're back into our the hearing. Again, to remind the witness, we recognize that you can only answer to what you're aware of. We do recognize that some of the questions, line of questioning, may or not be you're not be able to answer, and that's understood. Okay, I'm gonna repeat this question again, Council. Agun, was there any branch of government being omitted or not to qualify for premium, first and or business class?
Mr. President,
I get the question is related to the regulation, of which there was a comment period to include one or not to include the other, and generally speaking, branches of government.
So the draft regulations that the travel committee worked on only allowed for governor and lieutenant governor, no other branches.
Noted. Thank you. We shall move forward. This question is from Senator Paul Manglonia. What does the law say about first class travel? Counsel?
Would you like me to pull up the law, Mr. President?
Yes. What does the law say about first class travel?
One moment, please.
Counsel, while you fish out that statute, I'm going to ask the second question.
Okay.
When was the regulation by travel committee finally enacted, and is it in compliance with the public law?
Can you answer?
The chair recognizes and Counsel Q. Burnbridge.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. I just actually looked that up. It was promulgated originally, the travel regulations that the executive branch operates under was promulgated in September of 2020 and adopted in October of 2020.
Can you repeat that again, Gil?
The travel regulations were promulgated in September of 2020 and adopted as final in October of 2020.
But the question, when was okay? Okay, got that. So I'm still pending on the first question of what does the law say about first class travel?
Mr. President, I'm looking at 1 CMC 7407F, airfare restriction. The Commonwealth government shall not purchase or furnish for or reimburse to any employee, contractor, board member, or other person required to travel on behalf of the government, its departments, divisions, agencies, and autonomous agencies, an airline ticket for travel in first class, business class, or any other premium class designation. Travel agents issuing tickets for government travel shall only be paid at the regular economy fare or its equivalent. Any government employee who causes an airline ticket to be issued in violation of this section shall pay a civil fine of $1,000. That is what the law states.
Okay, will you be able to state which public law is that based on what you just read? Did they any citation? If not, that's okay, as long as you cited that. Thank you.
Okay.
You should move forward. Another question from Senator Edith De Leon Guerrero.
Mr. President, Mr. President,
Senator Edith,
privilege. My question
Sen-
wasn't addressed. If you read it, you ask him, is it in compliance when the regulation was adopted? Is it in compliance with the public law?
Okay, Council, was the regulation, okay, when was the regulation by travel committee finally enacted, and is it in compliance with public law?
That's a very general question, Mr. President. And, it's the House's burden to prove whether Governor Torres should be convicted today or not. It is not our burden. And so I think the issue really is that at the time,
Proceed.
on or around the time that Governor Torres was traveling first class, there was this big confusion about whether people could travel first class or not. And the AG is the office of the Attorney General, is the one that represents the Commonwealth and the governor. And so it was his responsibility to make sure that those regulations followed the law. And he was given that opportunity after the travel committee promulgated a draft regulation. And plain and simple, he didn't see that there was an issue with the first class travel. And that is what's the issue here, is that the AG himself, the Office of the Attorney General, was the one that created this confusion for numerous public officials, I might add, not just the governor, to travel first class around this time.
Thank you, Council. We shall move forward. And may I remind the members to please adhere to the decorum of this chamber. And if you're recognized, then you speak. If you're not, don't speak. Senator Paul Mangloya.
So, Mr. President, we are very limited because we have to write the questions. And sometimes you ask the questions, but they do not answer it.
Senator
So how
Mangloya,
do
and I did
we-
not object to your asking to me to restate the question. So I don't see why this is an issue. Just give me your question and I'll ask the witness.
Right,
or the
but,
counsel.
Mr.
we're not debating here. Let me just remind you that it's very clear in the beginning that I'm going to be asking the question and we're going to move forward. I have other questions here from other members,
Mr.
and I'm going to
President,
take
but
away.
what
I'm
is
going to
the
take away your privilege to talk right now, and you come around. Submit your other question. And the next question is from Senator Edith De Leon Guerrero. You mentioned that the concerns of the travel regs was premised on government department concerns of per diem. Not enough. I think this one is the witness. And so do you agree that the concerns of the first class travel was never the issue, which means that the restriction to travel on first class travel is restricted to date? Again, I'm going to read. It's kind of lengthy question. You mentioned that the concerns of the travel regs was premised on government departments concerns of per diem not enough. And so do you agree that the concerns of first class travel was never the issue, which means that the restriction to travel on first class travel is restricted today? It's kind of a tricky question, Mr. Cabrera. You can answer that.
Mr. President, I must object. That's a very compound, complex question that asks more than one question at a time. If we could break it up to have the witness answer, or if
Okay, I'm going to restate it again. You mentioned that the concerns of the travel regs was premised on the government department concerns of per diem not enough. Is that fair?
It was. I want to add. It's not only based on the per diem. They were complaining about the car rental situation too, like when they go to Rhoda specifically, how sometimes they get 80% or 70%, and they have to take it out of their pocket and to pay for the fuel. So all of those compound.
Okay. And then second part of that, so do you agree that the concern of first class travel was never the issue, which means that the restriction to travel on first class is restricted to date?
If I may, if I understand the question,
Answer to the best of your ability.
we never really talked about first class like that. It was we only understood, or we had a consensus that the governor and lieutenant governor would travel as they represent the state on first class. That's it.
Thank you. And here's another question from Senator De Leon Guerrero. Are you aware of any of OPA audit report number 20-06?
No,
Yes or no?
no.
if I may, Mr. President, that is the OPA report that I was discussing earlier that flagged the first class travel issue.
Okay. So you're not aware of that, Mr. Cabrera?
No, sir.
Okay. Are you aware of CNMI registered 2020-42-09? Yes or no?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I got one question here from Senator Santos. Were the drafted regulation published in the CNMI registry sent out for public comments before being adopted on 2021?
Again,
Like,
this is out of the scope of my witness's testimony, but
I can ask and recognize Mr. Burbridge to do this since he qualified that statement earlier. Mr. Burbridge?
From just look, I think it'd be public record. It was promulgated in the register. There was a notice and comment period that passed, and then they formally adopted the regulations. That's in the public record.
Thank you.
Respectfully, Mr. President, I think these questions are kind of missing the point. The point is that around the time that the alleged governor traveled in violation of the law, there was a confusion with finance, with all of the government agencies on whether or not anyone could travel first class. That's the issue. What happened after, if it got promulgated correctly or adopted, that's not the concern here. The concern here is that the committee, which was comprised of a bunch of different government agencies, believed it was in the best interest of the governor and lieutenant governor not to travel first class, and didn't think it was against the law. And when they gave it to the Attorney General's office to review, there was no mention about that provision breaking the law. That's the issue here. I think we're getting a little bogged down on whether those rules were eventually adopted or whatever, but the point is that around the same time they're alleging that governor traveled in violation of the law, the CNMI government itself was confused on whether people could travel. And I believe with my next witness, you guys will be able to hear a little more about that story.
Okay, thank you, Counsel. I'm gonna ask one more question, and then you are welcome to call your next witness on the same article, right?
Yes, Mr. President. Thank you.
Okay. I think there's substantial line of questions that have been posted that I'm ready to move to the next witness.
At this time?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Cabrera.
Mr. Cabrera.
Thank you.
Governor Torres calls to the stand its next witness, Mr. Lawrence Pangilinan.
I'd like to call, before we proceed, I'd like to call a short recess with regards. And at this time, I wish to clear the gallery. enlighten.
Initially, when I submitted the witness list, there was a deadline on a Friday, I believe, and at that time we didn't know about our witness. Just because we turned in the witness and exhibit list doesn't mean that I stopped working on this case. And after the witness list was submitted, we actually got a hold of Mr. Pangilinan here, and he has testimony that is critical to this article. And so, in fairness and injustice, I submitted a supplemental witness list that informed you of Mr. Pangilinan. And further, I looked through all of the rules, and there's nothing that prohibits me from calling a witness.
I just asked
Okay.
if there is any compelling interest that the chair would allow this particular witness to participate today. If that's the case, then I shall grant.
Yes,
that.
Mr. President.
So
He's
um,
critical to this, as
I,
you will
I
see.
understand, but I think the witness need to stand and take the oath.
Yes.
Please raise your right hand and state your name. I do solemnly swear that the testimony I shall give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
solemnly swear that the testimony I'm about to give is
The whole truth
the whole truth
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Council, before I ask you to pose your question to the witness, maybe I'm going to ask this first.
Yes,
Is he
Mr.
volunteering to appear today?
Yes, he is.
Okay, thank you. Go for it. You may proceed.
Thank you. Yes, to be clear, there was no subpoena issued for him. He came on his own. Yeah. Okay, so so we're on the same page. What I'm talking
Again,
about right
Article
now-
3. I'm sorry,
Yes.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but Article 3. Stick with Article 3.
Yes,
Thank you. Yeah.
exactly. I just wanted to remind everyone that we're discussing Article 3, which is unlawful first-class travel. And as you know, the Attorney General just filed a criminal case against Governor Torres, charging him with the same, even though the penalty for this law is just a civil penalty. And as a senator has commented already in the news,
Council, can you please proceed with your idea? We don't need to hear the rhetorics on that.
Yes,
Just
okay.
proceed with that.
good morning.
Good morning.
Please state your name for the record.
Lawrence Pangilinan.
Mr. Pangilinan, did you used to work for the Office of the Attorney General?
Yes.
What time was this? When was this?
Started with the Attorney General's office in 2016
Okay. And how long did you work there?
to about 2021.
And what position did you have around 2017?
Was an investigator, 3, and then became the chief investigator.
So just to confirm, you were the chief investigator for the Office of the Attorney General. And what year?
I believe late 17 or sometimes in 2018.
Okay. And what did you do as the chief investigator for the Attorney General?
Investigated any and all matters that crimes as they are violated, but to include blue collar crimes, government corruptions, etc.
And as the chief investigator, who did you report to?
The Attorney General,
And so that we're clear, who was the Attorney General at the time?
Errol Mabusan.
Thank you, Mr. Pangilinan. Sometime in 2019, do you ever remember the Attorney General asking you to investigate premium class travel for the government agencies?
Yes,
And was the request to investigate premium class travel for all the government employees or just for one in particular?
specifically for the governor,
And who made this request?
the attorney general.
And how did you feel about that?
Uh, I was actually opposed to it. I wanted to investigate the entire Sinamay government as a whole, and not just target the governor.
And so did you do that? Did you actually look into the first class travels around that time?
When he initially asked, I conveyed my concerns about conducting the investigation, targeting one person, whether it's the governor or not, and that there was a whole issue across the Sinamay government with premium travel. So to fix the issue, I thought it's better to investigate as entire government.
And as part of your investigation, did you review travel documents that government employees would submit?
Yes, travel authorizations, documents, finance documents, etc. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Pangilinan. Mr. President, if I may, I'm going to hand you now what has been pre-marked as Exhibit H and ask you to look at H4. Exhibit H, page 4. Can you tell me what this document is? The document title.
Oh, it's the travel authorization.
Okay. And the travel authorization is used to request travel for government employees, correct?
Yes,
It's a standard form.
correct.
Can you tell me who is this travel authorization for?
Edward Manibusan.
And looking at that document, can you tell what travel class he's flying in?
I can't recall.
Okay, so if it doesn't appear on the TA, would it typically appear on the other documents that's filed?
Yes, so when they file their boarding pass, etc. stuff.
Okay. Is there a boarding pass in that exhibit?
Oh, this entire thing. Yes,
And does it state what class travel AG Manibusan did?
there is a boarding pass for business.
Okay. Mr. Pangilinan, if you could just look at the screen. This is the same TA that you're looking at, correct?
Yes,
And where would you see if he traveled first class? Does it state there on the boarding passes?
yes.
Where on the boarding passes?
It's under his seat assignment.
And so to be clear, this travel authorization and documents confirm that AG Edward Manibusan indeed traveled first class after the law was passed in 2007.
Yes.
I'm going to hand you another document. This document is pre-marked as Exhibit I. If I may have these back, please. Exhibit I2, Mr. Pangilinan. Same question. Is this another travel authorization
Yes.
for the CNMI government?
Yes.
And whose name appears on this travel authorization?
Joey San Nicolas.
Are you aware if he was ever a former attorney general?
Yes.
He was an attorney general.
Yes. It was.
Same question as well. If you can look through the documents that were submitted with the TA, can you see which class travel this former AG did?
Council, May I ask, what's the relevance of this particular exhibit that we are before us?
Yes, Mr. President, this is very relevant information because as you can see, and as you will hear Mr. Pangilinan testify, Governor Torres wasn't the only one traveling first class at this time. Current and former AGs traveled during this time first class, which just brings me back to my point with Mr. Cabrera. There's huge confusion on whether or not anyone could travel first class at this time. The AG himself was confused. And even after a former AG and an AG traveled, as you will hear Mr. Pangilinan testify, the AG still only chose to criminally charge one person.
I think the chair is more than satisfied with his testimony. I don't think we need to go further as far as what he mentioned earlier about a specific individual being targeted. I think that it's clear. I don't see the need for proceeding with any further on this particular witness.
If I may, Mr. President, in fairness and injustice, the Commonwealth deserves to hear the truth. And the truth is, multiple public officials, including AG Manibusan and Lieutenant Governor Arnold I. Palacios, traveled first class around the same time that Governor Torres did. And yet, the only person that got charged criminally months before an election was Governor Ralph de Leon Guerrero Torres. So
Also-
respectfully, Mr. President, I disagree. I think this is very important, relevant information that not just the Senate, but the entire Commonwealth should hear.
I understand, Council, but I think it's very clear and very convincing your point that you're trying to stress. I'm particularly interested in the initial presentation of Exhibit H, of which the task force had asked the assistants of that office, and then the evidence that is presented to this body. I believe that it's understood already. So if there's no further exhibit to present, I wanted to ask to move forward.
Yes, Mr. President, of course. I have one more exhibit to present. We don't have to go through the whole verification if you want, but the last one is Exhibit L, which I also filed on my supplemental list. A travel authorization and confirmation that Lieutenant Governor Arnold I. Palacios also traveled first class around the same time. And the point...
Where's the
for-
exhibit? Can I see that? And while you fish out that information, Council, I would like to ask the Council, your co-counsel, I don't know if I'm out of order, but I don't think I am out of order, to pull out the language of the statute of government travel. I'm seeking that one particular line on what Council Ogun was referring to earlier, 1 CMC something.
7407.
So while Council Ogun presents this additional exhibit,
Again, Mr. President, this was something that we found during our investigation after the witness list was submitted, but it is, again, relevant information. I'm not trying to cast shade on anyone. All I'm trying to show the Senate is that there was confusion, that even the AG himself, who should have flagged that government employees shouldn't be flying first class, even he himself flew first class.
I
That's the only
understand.
reason why I'm showing these and entering these into evidence.
Okay, so proceed with your exhibit L.
Okay. Same question, Mr. Pangilinan. If you can please just look at the screen. Can you say who this travel authorization was for?
Joey St. Nicholas.
Oh, excuse me, this is Exhibit L. Let me just
sorry.
get it for you, no problem. Sorry, I gotta get it. There we go.
Again, members, please, if you submit your list, please write your name on the bottom. Thank you.
Who is this travel authorization for?
Arnold I. Palacios.
And
One.
if you look at the page, can you confirm that he too traveled first class? Or business?
Yes. Business.
So to confirm, this is a travel authorization for Lieutenant Governor Arnold I. Palacios after 2007, and he too traveled first class.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Pangilinan. Let's move forward. So in your investigation, looking into premium class travel, it's my understanding that you found a number of these issues, not just the TAs we presented, but you found numerous employees. Can you say how many?
There's a lot. I can't put a number to it. So
And so based on that investigation, what did you end up recommending?
again, so my recommendation was to go back and do a full audit, whether it be 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 years time span, and recuperate the cost of those first class premium travels from everyone, to include the governor.
So that would involve finance, right? Like finance, finding the amount that the extra cost for first class travel. And then,
Yes, as part of our investigation, we had calculated amounts per the individuals that we had found.
and that's actually consistent with the law, right? Which just has a civil penalty for this crime, for this
Correct.
issue.
Correct.
Yes. Did you put that recommendation into a report?
I did.
And did that report ever get to the Attorney General?
I personally handed it to him, hard copy.
And how did the Attorney General respond to your report?
I can just, in my opinion,
Yes.
just wasn't satisfied with my investigation.
And did the AG ever take up your recommendation and get those amounts paid
Not,
back to the government?
not to my knowledge.
And was any action taken for any of the premium class travel that you found at that time?
Not to my knowledge.
So would you say that the AG was aware of governor's travels, lieutenant governor's travels, all of these travels at the time you met with him?
Yes.
Mr. Pangilinan, I just have a couple more questions. In your report, did you recommend to prosecute Governor Torres for violating the law?
No.
And is that still your opinion today?
Yes.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you, Council. This time I now open the floor to the members to pose their question. And again, members, please be signing your name on the bottom. And also, we are posting our questions on Article 3. First question by Senator Victor Hokok. This is addressed to Mr. Pangilinan. Do you have any idea why the AG instruct you to only investigate the governor's first-class travels?
I can only speculate, but that's all I can do.
Okay. Thank you. And this next question is from Senator Carl King Neighbors. Question number 1. Do you, in your capacity then, know if anyone else was tasked to investigate other agencies? That includes other branches, autonomous agencies, just for consistency, First-class travel department?
Within the Attorney General's office, no, it would be just myself. But I did request to work with the Office of Public Auditor and was given that opportunity.
So the answer is yes.
Yes, sorry.
Okay. Okay. Number two, did the AG tell why he only wanted the governor to be investigated?
No. No.
Um, I believe this is from Senator Cruz. Did you know why the AG instructed or tasked you to investigate only the governor and not across the government agencies?
No, even after, no. Sorry.
Okay. Did you share this task with anyone? Did anyone help you, in other words?
There was 3 investigators at that time, so we were spread thin. Every now and then I would ask my guys for some assistance or even opinions. Yes, to that nature.
Okay.
If I may ask a follow-up question, Mr. President?
Counsel?
Can you please name those people that assisted you at the AG's office?
So I can't recall exactly what I asked them to do, but I know in every case that we work on, because we're spread thin, we help assist each other in and out of cases. But the 2 other investigators that I worked with was Investigator Urbano Babota and Investigator Ikluk Masayos.
Thank you.
Okay. And again, Mr. Pangilinan, the question is addressed to you from Senator Edith Leonguero. Is a boarding pass indicative of first-class travel purchase?
Yes.
Okay, so perhaps I don't want to ask for, but I'm going to ask anyway. Could this be a general question of, oh, you have miles from previous, you can upgrade? You don't necessarily purchase the ticket.
Of course.
So the question again is a boarding pass indicate of a first class travel purchase?
It has to be investigated further.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, number 2 is AG Manibusan and former AG San Nicolas being charged in this trial?
No.
Okay. I'm going to hold this other question, Senator. Okay, number 3, is it safe to say that a boarding pass could be on upgrade and not direct purchase at the onset of a TA process?
Yes, same answer, yes.
Okay, thank you. Senator Edith Longuero's question, understanding and law are 2 different things. Senator Edith Longuero, I respectfully ask that we don't proceed with this question. Senator, I believe the witness is no longer in the stands. I don't know how to proceed with this unless there's okay. The reason because it's on articles of impeachment number 1. That's why it's okay. My apologies. My bad. Sorry, folks. Okay, on articles of impeachment number 3 from Senator Paul Manglonia, are there any members in the Senate who traveled in first class while serving as senator or other public office?
I would have to go back and look at the stack of TAs that we looked through.
Okay, thank you. When you requested to investigate governor's first class travel, was this after the House of Representatives JGO in the 21st legislature completed their investigation report that they also furnished copy to the AG's office? Do you recall?
Can I clarify?
Okay,
I didn't request to.
Okay, Naga. When you were requested to investigate governor's first class travel, was this after the House of Representative in the 21st? We're in the 22nd right now. I'm going to reject this question because we're now dealing with a resolution on the 22nd. So I'll strike that out.
Okay.
Um,
That decision.
Sinto po, I haven't recognized you, so I'm going to ask the next question. On the AG's first class TA, did the government pay for the difference between economy class and first class? Typical travel regs. On the AG's first class TA, did the government pay for the difference between economy class and first class?
I can't recall.
Okay. On the first class travel for AG, former AG, JP and class, did the government pay for the difference between the economy class and first class?
I can't recall.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Another question I'm going to ask a question from article of impeachment number 3 from Senator Teresita Santos. And it's quite lengthy. Would it be possible that other government employees may travel first class or business class without violating the CNMI travel policy? That is I think we asked this question before,
Yes.
using the privilege of,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's possible, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Question from Senator Carl King Neighbors. To your knowledge, prior to 2019, did the AG ever request for inquiry into first class travel?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to ask again. To your knowledge, prior to 2019, did the AG ever request for inquiry into first class travel?
Prior to 2019?
Mhm.
No.
Yes or no?
No.
Okay. If you don't, then don't, you need to. Okay,
Right.
thank you. And next question is, give me a. You stated earlier that you were opposed to the instructions of AG Manibusans to investigate Governor Torres' travel. Did you went ahead to investigate Governor Torres' travel?
I did not move forward with the request initially. I was at the time working on numerous cases, but I was opposed of that to target one person when it comes to the travel topic. The Attorney General himself, after a couple weeks, called me and asked for a status. I then told him I haven't worked on it and explained that I'm still very much opposed to just investigating one person, whether it's the governor or not. Why can't I just investigate across the CNMI government? That was what I thought would be beneficial for the CNMI government. At that point, he further instructed me to just look into the governor. So of course, he is my boss, and I move forward with the investigation.
So in other words, you reluctantly obliged.
Yes.
Next question. Have you, Senator Edith, okay, I think I don't think this is relevant to why we're here. There's no further questions for this. One more. Okay, when you were tasked to investigate the governor's first-class travel. As indicated earlier, as mentioned earlier, was this after the House of Representatives sent a referral to AG, referral letter to AG?
Um, I, I'm not sure when he would have gotten a referral. Sometimes those information aren't shared with me. Um, I do know that a lot of the documents that we were, while investigating, that we were requesting for had been previously already released to the House or JGO as they were formed at that time. I don't
Okay, thank you. This question is from Senator Cruz. After submitting a report on first-class business to the AG, did he suggest to file complaint against all who violated 1 CMC Section 7047F? When was this investigation took place again?
on or around about late 2019. Yeah.
Late 2019.
And to answer the other question, no, he did. We did not talk about prosecuting further.
Thank you, Mr. Pangilinan. Any other questions? We're ready to move forward to the next. Is there any other witness, Council?
No, Mr. President, as I may remind the Senate, the burden of proof today is really on the House, and they already failed that burden. It's just in fairness and injustice that we believe that the Senate and the honorable and the members of our community should hear this evidence to just see how really baseless the articles of impeachment lodged against Governor Torres really is.
Okay.
Actually, for each article, I have a short summary, if I may be allowed to present it upon the conclusion of the witness.
Mr. Pangilinan is already done.
Okay.
Oh, no further question. Go ahead and proceed,
Thank you,
Council.
Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Pangilinan, for your present.
And one more housekeeping matter, Mr. President. I see my witness, Mr. Cabrera, is still in the gallery, but if he's done, can we, if you would like, can he be allowed to leave, or would you like him to stay back
I
and wait?
mean, there's no reason for him to stick around if there's no more question on. I'd rather that he goes and he does his day.
Okay, so they can be excused.
Yes,
Thank
you are excused, Mr. Cabrera. Thanks for your participation this morning.
And from Mr. Pangilinan as well.
Yes, same goes to Mr. Pangilinan.
Thank you.
And you may proceed, Council Agun.
Okay. Honorable members of the Senate, Article 3 charges Governor Torres with violating the law by traveling premium class. However, the articles do not address that the Attorney General himself ordered an investigation on this premium class travels back in 2019. And they also don't address that the Attorney General limited that investigation to one person, Governor Torres. As you just heard Mr. Pangilinan, the AG's chief investigator, testify, the AGID did conduct an investigation on premium class travel for the government in 2019. And his investigation uncovered numerous public officials that traveled premium class. This includes the AG himself, AG Manibusan, former AGs, and even the Lieutenant Governor, Arnold I. Palacios. After concluding his investigation, the AG's chief investigator recommended not to prosecute any of the officials who traveled premium class, and instead suggested that the government calculate the cost of the travel and recover those amounts through payroll deductions for the respective employees. Now, had the AG truly been concerned about the premium class travel issue, he should have followed the chief investigator's recommendation at that time. Instead, no such payroll deductions were recommended or made, and the AG waited 3 years after the alleged travel, but only months before the election, to criminally charge only one official, Governor Torres. We also heard today from Mr. Cabrera, who testified about the Travel Regulations Committee that was formed by Governor in 2017 to create uniform travel regulations for the government. Those regulations did not prohibit premium class travel for certain public officials at the time. And when the committee drafted its regulations and included specific language that allowed premium class travel for the governor and the lieutenant governor, they justified the provision because the heads of our government needed sufficient rest when they were traveling on long trips and representing the CNMI. It is worth noting here that a number of attorney generals, assistant attorney generals, including Deanna Manglonia Ogo, and even the AG himself, reviewed the draft travel regulations and did not advise against any provisions allowing for premium class travel, even though such a provision conflicted with the law. And so, members of the Senate, it is clear that the governor and the lieutenant governor's ability to travel premium class on behalf of the government at that time was an idea that was not only supported by the attorney general, who didn't mention anything about premium class travel violating the law, but it was also promoted by the attorney general, who himself traveled first class at that time. Based on the foregoing, it is undeniably clear that there was confusion amongst the entire CNMI government about whether or not public officials could fly premium class. And the confusion was only furthered by their attorney, the attorney general, who reviewed draft travel regulations and did not advise that premium class travel was prohibited by law. So add that to the fact that the AG traveled premium class himself, and that the 2019 AGID investigation into premium class travel recommended no prosecution, along with the fact that there is no supporting evidence on record for this Article 3, I respectfully submit today that the House has failed to meet its burden of proof for this article, and as such, you must vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Ogun.
Mr.
Hold on, no, Senator.
Ah,
Just hold on. I asked earlier about the language of. I must commend Senator Cruz because he got that down. The 1 CMC 704.
7407.
Can you just read that out again, please?
Yes, Mr. President. F, correct? 7407.
Whatever
F.
the language that is indicated.
Airfare restriction. The Commonwealth government shall not purchase or furnish for or reimburse to any employee, contractor, board member, or other person required to travel on behalf of the government, its departments, divisions, agencies, and autonomous agencies, an airline ticket for travel in first class, business class, or any other premium class designation. Travel agents issuing tickets for government travel shall only be paid at the regular economy fare or its equivalent. Any government employee who causes an airline ticket to be issued in violation of this section shall pay a civil fine of $1,000.
Can you repeat that last line?
The last line, any government employee who causes an airline ticket to be issued in violation of this section shall pay a civil fine of $1,000. That brings me back to my point about this is actually just a
thank you,
civil
Counsel.
penalty.
I just asked that to remind us that the Article 3 in discussion throughout this presentation, I want to end by going back to that particular line item.
Yes,
So with that, Senator Santos, I recognize, submit your question to the chair, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. And so I just wanted to know if
Chair, can you submit to the presiding officer your question?
is it oral or written?
Written.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
the standard procedure. And again, contain your question to Article 3. And while Senator Santos Palacios writes her question. I wanted to inform the members that we're going to work through lunch. I forgot to mention this earlier, and I apologize. We need to take a recess at 2 o'clock because I have an appointment at 4 o'clock on Tinian. So we're going to recess at 2 o'clock. And we'll be reconvening when I announce before 2 or before we recess today. Okay, the question by Senator Santos. Does the I'm sorry, Senator Santos, what is this word? LA? Oh, got it. Does the I think this question is supposed to be asked to our legal counsel, no? Yes. Okay. Counsel, Bermudez. Does the impeachment rule also the attorney of the impeached to making brief closing arguments after each article of? I think this is more of a chair. My question to me: is it the same counsel that will be making the presentation, doing the closing arguments? Go ahead and ask. Press the red.
The question here is, I want to know if does the impeachment rule allows for Attorney Agun to be making brief or mini closing remarks after each article of impeachment? Thank you.
I decide that one, Madam Chair. And the answer is yes. And that's the reason why we're doing each article to be presented and then the witness list so that we can pose our question. Because I assure you that we're not going to be going back to Article 3 once we're done, which I think we are done. Thank you. I hope that clarifies. Attorney Algun, we're moving on ahead with the proceedings of
Yes, Mr. President.
are we done with Article 3?
Yes, I'm done with my arguments for Article 3, and I'd like to move forward with Article 1.
Okay, with Article 1, can you just read that out? I apologize. Article 1 of the resolution is correct.
Would you like me to read out the Article 1 from the Articles of Impeachment, Mr. President?
Yeah, for consistency, might as well. Yeah.
Oh, I can say that the Article 1 regards theft of utility services.
Okay,
Um,
proceed with
and-
Article 1.
In order to address Article 1, I call to stand Mr. Gary Camacho, who's the Executive Director of CUC. Right, there's the script, okay. Can you put it here, please? Thank you.
Please raise your right hand and state your name. I do solemnly swear that the testimony I shall give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Good morning, Mr. Camacho.
Morning.
Thanks for being here. Council Agun, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. May you please state your name for the record?
Gary B. Camacho,
And Mr. Camacho, what is your current occupation?
I'm the Executive Director for the Commonwealth Utilities Corporation,
How long have you been with CUC?
approximately 28 years.
Commonwealth Utilities Corporation, shorthand is CUC, correct?
That's correct.
And I'm going to dive right into this allegation. How did you first come across the issue with the utility bills at Governor Torres's official residence?
I received a call from Governor Torres, informing me that he's obviously concerned, or apparently concerned, that of the high usage at the Esteo property, in which at the time he resided.
And what happened after you received that report from Governor Torres?
I informed the division manager,
Mhm.
water division manager, to look into the matter and see why the water was obviously a concern to him.
Did CUC figure out the issue?
Yes, there were some folks that were sent down by the division manager, and it turns out that upon coordinating with the governor, they were able to review the property past the meter, because CUC stops at the meter, past the meter, and make a determination that that the piping did not end at his residence.
So just so we understand correctly, a utility meter is usually placed outside of the residence.
That's correct.
And so CUC wasn't aware, and Governor Torres wasn't aware either, that it actually split after the water meter.
That was, as far as CUC is concerned, absolutely. And then that was made for us to understand by Governor Torres at the time.
Okay. And around what time was this?
I think it was November of 2019,
Okay.
if I remember correctly.
So to fix the problem, CUC added another meter, correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, the idea was to as Governor Torres had mentioned, that he there was no there was no idea of him first knowing that it was moving to other areas, and that the idea was to isolate his usage, which was obviously the case.
So just so I understand correctly, the issue is that his water bill was really high.
Yes, and that was his concern.
And when you found out that it was, you needed to add another meter, you essentially divided his residence from another personal building, correct?
Yeah, we isolated his residence from anything else on the property.
Okay. And then, excuse me, let's call that other property the Pala Pala, the second meter. So did CUC take any action to fix the billing issue between the two water meters?
Yes, after we had isolated the governor's residence, we for approximately around 6 months, we wanted to see what the average usage was. Once that was determined, and then we had gone back to the inception of the account and use that average to isolate his usage, and everything else was going to be applied to another account, another commercial account, or a different account.
Yeah, I'm just making sure because it's a little confusing.
Sure.
You separated Governor Torres' official residence from the Pala Pala, created two water meters for each of them, and then you divided the billing for the water meters to each, accordingly to each water bill. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
To each customer and to each different rate.
Oh, sorry. Understand.
Yeah, please talk closer to the mic. No?
Yes, getting too comfortable. After CUC added the other meter, it adjusted the utility usage between the two meters and billed each meter accordingly,
That's correct.
right? And it did that by, like you just said, it averaged the usage over the months, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And when you appeared before the JGO, I remember a congressman alleging that there was this $90,000 amount that wound up missing as a result of this switch or this change. Is that true?
No, absolutely not. The $90,000 was billed under a commercial for the same exact volume. Was billed at the the government rate. That exact volume equated to $90,000. Now, when we isolated and made the determination of exactly how much on average that the governor's residence was using, then we remove that from the overall total number of gallons. And then we then took the difference. And then if we were going to apply it to that other account was no longer government. That other account was a non-government account. And then that rate applied. And then so that exact number of gallons then took on a different rate. And then that was applied in full. So the $90,000 that was originally used for payment was credited back to the government listing at CAC, and we informed the Department of Finance, and then we were going to be waiting as to where they wanted us to apply on the various different government accounts.
Understand. So what about the Pala charge? Did you end up applying that same volume amount
Yep.
to the other?
Yeah, but I'm sorry. Let me get that cleared.
Yes, please.
That $90,000 was an amount that as I said, equated to that number of gallons. So the number of gallons was indeed billed, but billed at the 11,000. I mean at the non-government rate. So it was all applied accordingly.
In other words, the $90,000 charge at the government rate equated to around $10,000 or $11,000 at the non-government rate.
That's correct.
And that was charged to the Pala meter.
That is correct. The other than the governor's account.
Yes.
Council,
Yes.
sorry to interject, but I just want to remind everybody in the gallery to please turn off your cell phone. Anyone in the gallery that's sitting down, please turn off your cell phone. Thank you. Proceed.
Thank you. So that same water usage amount, that $10,000 to $11,000, was it paid personally?
Yes, it was. It was the individual created. Obviously, we had to put a meter again outside of the property, and that particular meter was established by that customer. The customer came in and created a payment program and is current to the state.
Thank you. So, in your opinion, did Governor Torres commit theft of utility services as alleged?
No, not with CUC at all.
And this testimony that you're giving today, it's consistent with the testimony you gave at the JGO, correct?
That's absolutely correct.
Mr. Camacho, I'd like to move on to the utility benefit. Are you aware of the utility benefit that is given to CNMI governors and lieutenant governors that essentially has their utilities paid for their official residence in lieu of government housing?
Yes, I was made to be aware of that as I took on this capacity. Prior to that, I did not know.
Okay, so it's been a common practice since you have worked for CUC.
I've been made
correct?
to understand that, yes.
Yes. And both Governor Torres and Lieutenant Governor Palacios get their utilities paid for their official residence.
That is my understanding.
As you're aware, the House alleges that the governor had utility bills paid by the government for 2 residences at the same time. Is that a correct statement?
No, that is not.
And so, just to be clear, it is CUC's position that Governor Torres only had one official residence, the utilities of one official residence paid for at a time since he's become the governor.
At a time, that's correct.
Yes. And did you ask your staff to look into this and confirm it?
Yes, I did. Absolutely.
And did they in fact confirm it?
Yes, they did.
Is this testimony the same as the testimony that you gave at the JGO?
Yes, it is.
But you're aware that the articles of impeachment are accusing Governor Torres of getting 2 residences paid at the same time. You are aware of that?
I'm aware of that.
And you're saying that was not your testimony
That's
at the JGO
correct.
hearing. Are you aware of any governor that actually has had 2 residences paid for at the same time?
I've been made aware since the review of these accounts that there was previously a governor who had 2 accounts. What they were for, I don't know, but there were 2 accounts, and that were being paid to CUC.
two residences.
I mean, well,
correct?
yeah, two different, yeah, 2 kilowatt-hour accounts.
And they were both charged at the government rate.
Correct.
And you would only charge an account at the government rate if it was paid for by the government. Isn't that true?
Correct.
Okay. Do you know who that governor was?
It is my understanding it was Governor Babauta, who had 2 accounts at the time.
So just to understand what you're saying, Governor Juan Enrique Babauta actually had 2 residences, the utility bills of 2 residences
That's
paid
what-
for at the same time.
That's what I've been informed by my staff, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Camacho. No further questions.
Thank you. But before we allow the members to post their question, I would like to call for a 5-minute recess, and please be back 3 minutes before 12. Short recess. of questioning? We are back into our hearing, resuming our hearing. Council, so you're done with the witness presentation?
Yes, Mr. President, and to be clear, this is my only witness for this article.
Okay, the only one witness for this article. Okay, so right now I'm going to allow some questions with regards to Article 1 from the members. Here's one from Chairman Cruz. Was there any criminal complaint made by CUC of tampering of CUC water, of the utility meters, or complaint of illegal tapping of water and utility meters? And of course, this is in reference to the theft charges on the articles of impeachment. Go ahead, Mr. Camacho, you can answer that.
No, I did not receive any issues of or addressing potential theft there.
Mr. President, if I may ask a follow-up question?
You're going to ask him a question?
May I ask a follow-up question? Okay.
Proceed.
Mr. Camacho, can you just explain there's a procedure, right? If,
Council, I was going to ask that question.
oh, sorry.
So, okay, so the next question is it's from me. What's the typical process that CUC does, or by regulation, no? If there is such concern or dispute of one's utility bill, what's the process, SOP?
Well, we would normally, of course, pass it to the operations division, and that division, depending on what service, water, wastewater, or power, then we would look into it. And when we did look into it, there was no bypass of the meter. Every drop of water that was going into that facility was on the meter. So we determined we're recording it and billing it. So there was no bypass of service. That's normally, and then that is recorded. Public safety is involved, and then a report comes to my office, and then we communicate with the AG's office.
So for the purpose of this particular presentation, that process was adjudicated, was fulfilled.
It was not needed. It was not determined as a bypass. Yeah,
So in other words, there was no concern.
Yeah, there was no bypass of the meter. Everything, the CUC ends at the meter. Everything at the meter everything going in was being registered.
Okay, thank you. And again, thank you for that question. Please, members, if you have questions, please submit it to the chair, and we will ask. This question is from Senator Hoko. Mr. Camacho, what is...
Mr. President, if I could just ask one more follow-up question before you proceed.
Proceed, Council.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure we understand the theft and water meter issue. You're saying if it's a theft, it would come before the water meter, correct?
Yeah, it would become before the water meter, because the water meter then is used for registration or a recording of the usage, and then for billing purposes. So that process was still intact.
So if it was after, CUC is still recording the water. It's just an issue of who's going to pay the bill.
That's
right?
correct. Yeah, and we were billing it.
And when CUC sees something that could be criminal, are you involved in that process, or is there already a procedure that goes forward?
There's a procedure behind it. Then I'm informed later.
Okay, and this didn't happen.
That's
in this
correct.
case, right?
That's
Thank you.
correct.
Thank you, Council. Mr. Camacho, what is CUC definition of power theft?
Well, it's a defraud of use. I mean, you receive service and you are not paying for your services.
Can you give an example?
Yeah. For example, bypassing the meter. The meter's there. Somebody puts a pipe prior to the meter, around the meter, and into the property. you're bypassing that meter. That meter, it's an unregistered usage into your property for your personal use. That's what we believe is the theft. As long as we need to record it and we need to bill it accordingly under a registered account, and that's what we did.
Thank you. Did CUC discover
Knowingly, as long as that's knowingly.
Okay,
Yeah, with that intent.
thanks for the clarification. Okay, here's another question. Did CUC discover any alterations to the meter? Any evidence of tampering to the subject discussion?
No, did not.
So there's no.
There was none. Everything was being registered.
Okay. Okay. Can you explain the $177,000 funded utilities benefits for 2 private residences from
Well-
2015 to 2021? Are you aware of this?
I'm not sure if it was 177,000. Now the 2 residences, once was in Kobler, and the other was in Esteo. And my understanding is that when he had, resided in Koblerville, he was there. And then when he moved over, I think in October of 2018, Kobler was paid soon thereafter, and Esteo was initiated. So it was in 2 different locations at 2 different times.
Okay. So after you got a call from the governor, did you go all the way back to those subject dates?
Yes, we
You
did.
And
We went
you-
back to the inception of the account.
So the answer is you reconciled then,
Correct.
and you didn't see
Privilege,
any.
Mr. President.
You didn't see any particular. Senator Po, submit your question to the chair.
2015. Can you be specific on the
Okay.
date and read the question,
Noted,
Mr.
noted.
President?
Noted, Senator Po. Go. Okay, so the question is: so after the governor called you to correct the meters, did you go all the way? Did you go all the way back to 2015?
To correct the meters in Esteo,
Whatever the
the governor did not have an account in Esteo during that period. Not a governor's account in 2015.
Okay, here's another question. How many residences did CUC pay the utilities before or under the governor's name during the period of February 2015 to 2021 to August 2021? Sorry, sometimes the handwriting I cannot really read clearly. So the question is, how many residences did CUC pay the utilities on under the governor's name during the period of February 2015 to August 2021?
It is my understanding that
President,
State to me.
for the record, that's my question, Mr. President, that you just read. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the question by Senator Santos.
Can you please repeat the question, Mr. President?
How many residences did CUC paid utilities under the governor's name during the period of February 2015 to 2017? I'm sorry, February 2015 to August 2021.
okay. In let me just start this way. In
Take your
20
time, Mr. I know this is a billing
Yeah.
and it's very critical that you're consistent. So take your time with your answer.
Sure. Thank you for that consideration. The governor had paid for up until from February 2015 through the 2017. It is my understanding that he paid one account, and then forward he had an additional account that he was paying on his own. I mean, it was a private account.
so that we can understand it, because we're talking about being under his office account. So that question that was just asked, can you restate again?
Yeah, from my understanding, he was paying for one account, and then
meaning
that was up until April of 2017.
meaning
and-
that's I'm sorry that I'm interjecting, but I just want to make sure that we truncate it so we can understand.
Sure.
So that is his private. That is his individual.
No, this is the LT, the lieutenant governor's account, him being the lieutenant governor at the time. It is my understanding. And then forward, and I'm looking at a spreadsheet that was provided to me and I'm looking forward after that, April of 2017, the additional private residence was added to the account.
Okay, thank you.
Now I need to get clarification on that, if I may.
Counsel, this is
Can I
your
just
witness,
ask some
so
questions, please? Yeah. I think what they're trying to get is the official residence's utilities, right? So in Coblerville, when governor was residing there, did he have any other accounts as a utility benefit, paid for as a utility benefit, besides the Coblerville house?
Under the governor's account?
Under the
No.
governor's account. Okay. Then after he moved, when did he move from Coblerville to Esteo?
In October.
After he moved to Esteo, did you keep paying on the Cobler account?
No, there was that was the Cobler account was paid and closed out and moved over to the Esteo account.
So to be clear, Governor Torres received a utility benefit for Coblerville until he moved out of Coblerville into Esteo, and that utility benefit transferred over to the Esteo.
That's correct.
And your staff looked over each month to make sure that there was no double billing or any issues with billing, correct?
Yes, that is correct. That's what I was informed, that there is no double billing.
And I must mention at this point that that spreadsheet you were referring to at the JGO hearing, was that CUC spreadsheet?
No, that was a document that was actually provided on the projector. I'm not sure where that document had come from, but it was definitely not a CUC document.
And would you say that the document mischaracterized the evidence?
Absolutely. From my understanding, from my billing department, that is not an accurate document. And I did make that clear in that that day that document was not ours, and that document we needed to review and understand a little bit more as to where that information had come from and how it was derived and labeled on that document.
And were you ever given that opportunity?
Not that day, no, because we broke for lunch. I mentioned that, and when we reconvened, there was no opportunity for that discussion again, or that issue was not raised again.
To be clear, it's your understanding that the information, the spreadsheet that had the wrong information, was what the JGO used as part of its support for the articles against Governor Torres.
That's correct. That is correct.
thank you. And that articulation, Counsel, thank you. It almost seems like you're reading Senator Santos's mind, because that's the question that I'm about to ask. But yeah, thank you for clarifying that.
I just wanted to be clear to everyone.
Yeah, thank you. And that's not the first time, by the way. Even Senator Cook's question earlier, you kind of read. I'm not sure what happened, but you're good job.
Thank you. I'm just trying to be helpful.
Yeah. Okay, question on to Mr. Camacho. To your knowledge, has the Office of the Attorney General reached out to CUC regarding theft by Governor Torres of utilities?
I don't recall any communication in that regard from his office.
So there's no call from the AG's office with regards to any theft?
No, I'm not aware of. I can't.
Thank
I'm
you.
not aware.
Here's another one from Senator Edith. Were there any payments reversing entries on Governor Torres' account?
There, from my understanding, there were, yes.
I wanted to ask, can you?
It
Can
is
you
my
explain what that
understanding,
is?
and I don't have the full details on it, but it is my understanding that he did make he did make payment, and the government was supposed to make that payment, but he went ahead and made the payment, and then later got reimbursement for it after the government had paid it.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask this question, but I'm not certain if you're able to provide that now. But I'm going to ask it anyway because since it's important that we know the difference and what CUC had taken into or how they reacted or they process it with regards to both personal accounts, okay, and government rates. After the audit of the governor's accounts, how much are we talking about that we transfer from government account to personal account, assuming we keep government rate figures instead of converting to commercial rate? I'm not certain if that's pretty cloudy, that kind of question, but I'm certain that you can answer this.
Right, and are we going back with what we credited the government account?
That's
Is
correct.
that what we're referring to?
Well,
Yeah,
a lot of this is not going to be it's not going to be charged for a private account. You're going to be charged with, whatever the Article 1 is stipulating.
right. Yeah, but that was just my question was, we did charge, but as we made that determination that the usage was not his, then again we isolated that volume, and we billed and we did not bill government that volume, but the same exact volume was given to the other account, and that other account is on a payment program to deal with that, and the government was credited that amount, so the government never paid that amount or for that volume of water that was initially billed. I don't know if you follow me on that.
Would you, would you like me to ask some follow-up questions?
Proceed, Council.
Okay, let's just make sure we all understand this $90,000 issue. $90,000 is equivalent to the government rate for the amount of water that you determine should have been credited to the Pala Pala and not Governor Torres's official residence.
Right, that's correct.
That $90,000 at the government rate, when it's converted to the non-government rate, it equaled around $10,000-$11,000
For the exact amount of water.
Amount of water.
Exact volume of water.
So the issue then isn't where did the money go? It's an issue of, is this an official residence paid for by the government, or is this a personal residence? And if it's a personal residence, then it would be paid at the government rate. I mean, the non-government rate, correct?
That's correct.
And to be clear, all of this water was logged by CUC. So it's not a matter of there was missing charges, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
So everything was paid for going in. It just applied to a different rate.
So there's no really missing monies. It's just the conversion of the government rate to the non-government.
That's on the billing side. Yes, we did. So the money that was originally paid that was credited back to the government account. Finance was informed that it's back. We asked finance, where would you like for us to apply it in the various government accounts? So again, that volume of water was inevitably billed, both a certain amount for the government based on an average usage of the governor's residence, and the difference charged to the other account. So all volumes were identified, recorded, billed, and paid.
Thank you.
Okay. Here's another question from Senator De Leon Guerrero. You had mentioned earlier in October, the Kobler accounts closed out and moved to Esteo. When in October? In what year?
In 2018, if is my understanding, and I think it was around October 9th. So if I remember correctly, latter part of August was the last usage billed to the Kobler residence.
Do you have any knowledge if this Kobler residence is still active today?
No, I don't. Not me personally, no.
Okay, thank you. Senator
No,
Cruz.
no, if I may,
Proceed.
with all due respect, when you say active, you mean active in government? That I can answer no. If someone is residing there, I don't know.
That's whatever.
Okay.
That's what the question is. Okay, from Senator Cruz. You mentioned in your statement that the government had paid utilities for 2 residential of former Governor Babauta. Was this house JGO aware of this during interviewing you on subject privilege to governor and lieutenant governor on power and water?
I was just made aware of that recently. So
Question is it a
yeah.
yes or no?
I don't think so.
Okay. So they're not aware.
No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
All right. Okay, so from Senator Hokuk, the total billing reflected from Article 1 utility usage is a lump sum amount when he was then LT, Lieutenant Governor, dating back 2015 and to date as governor. Is this correct?
I'm sorry?
Okay, the total figures, monetary figures that have been included in the articles of impeachment that we are discussing today is the total utility usage lumped together and the amount when he was serving as an LT, Lieutenant Governor, and now as governor.
Yeah, it seems that way, yes.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have any further questions with regards to this particular article and to this witness. Counsel, do you have any other presentation for this article?
No, Mr. President.
Do you have any statements that you'd like to, before we part to next article?
Yes, I do have a short summary just to help explain to the senators
Okay,
what's
so
going on.
stay in the context of Article 1.
Yes,
And
maybe excuse Mr.
Mr. Camacho, thank you for your participation
agency.
today. We appreciate your time and your answers. And you are hereby excused from further staying.
Thank
back.
you. Thank you very much.
Jesus Masi.
Thank you, Mr. Camacho. One moment, please.
A privilege, if I may, Mr. President.
Senator.
I just wanted to refer to Rule 24, where it says witness examination and presentation of hearing exhibits questions by senators. Rule 24C specifically states that after completion of questioning by parties, any senator present desiring to question a witness shall be permitted to do so. If a party objects to a senator's question, then the presiding hearing officer shall rule that objection. So I just want to put that on record, Mr. President. So any senators who have further questions after questioning by parties, in this case, I take parties to mean the defense. Unfortunately, we don't have prosecutor. That any senator here have the authority to question a witness. Thank you.
That is understood based on the realms of the hearing procedure here. So once the witness is dismissed, Senator, then he's no longer, or he or she no longer in the stance to answer questions from the members. Thank you. Counsel Ogun.
Thank you, Mr. President. Honorable members of the Senate, Article 1 alleges that Governor Torres committed theft of utility services by obtaining utility benefits from CUC for his privately owned residence and by requesting and receiving unjust utility benefits for 2 residences at the same time. However, as you just heard directly from CUC Executive Director Gary Camacho, Governor Torres did not commit theft of utility services. Commonwealth law does not prohibit the payment of the utilities of governor and lieutenant governor's official residences. This has been a long-time practice of the government, and in fact, it's been confirmed by the House in House Bill 2288. As that House bill explains, Paying the utility bill of a governor and lieutenant governor's official residence has been a government practice here in the CNMI, since the government housing afforded to those officials by law are not in a livable condition. The House bill proposes to set a cap on the amount of monthly utility charges for those official residences. The House bill therefore proves that there is no law preventing the governor's utility bill from being paid as a benefit of being the CNMI governor or lieutenant governor. And importantly, this bill also proves that Governor Torres did not have the necessary intent to violate the law. The JGO committee also claimed that the governor stole, allegedly, $90,000 from CUC. But just as the executive director testified, that was not at all what happened. After he got a call from Governor Torres, CUC identified an issue and added a separate water meter for what we will call the Pala Pala. CUC then backtracked the water usage for that account. And it is true that the water usage for the Pala Pala did amount to $90,000, but that was at the government rate. However, as Director Camacho explained, when CUC converted that same water usage to the non-government rate and charged the Pala Pala, the same amount of water usage was reduced to around $10,000. As such, the correct amount was properly charged to the correct account, and a payment plan was made, and thereafter is being paid for. Now, I would also like to address the allegation that governor's utility bills are exorbitant. Once again, this is simply not true. The House alleges $177,000 of the governor's utility bills. But if we take that $177,000, which is what the House claims are the governor's utility bills, and divide them over the span of 80 months, which is what they're charging him with, governor's monthly bill comes out to around $2,212. Governor, his wife, and his 6 kids, that's an 8-member household. You divide that by 8, and governor's monthly utilities per person comes out to around $277. Now, for perspective, let's compare that to Lieutenant Governor Arnold I. Palacios. At the JGO, Lieutenant Governor testified that his monthly utilities average at around $800 a month. He has a 2-person household, so if we divide that by 2, Lieutenant Governor's monthly utilities comes out to $400 per person. Honorable members of the Senate, in comparison, Governor Torres actually uses less monthly utilities per person than the Lieutenant Governor, yet only the governor is being charged here. Finally, Director Camacho's testimony confirms that since taking office, Governor Torres has only received the utility benefit for one official residence at a time. In fact, the director testified that there was only one CNMI governor who received utility benefits for 2 official residences at the same time, and that governor is Juan Epifanio. One of the senators asked if the House JGO knew about this. My only response to that is, I believe the JGO chairwoman made it quite clear that she was the administrative assistant for Governor Babauta. Based on the foregoing, it's apparent that the House distorted CUC's testimony in order to support these allegations that they made in Article 1. Honorable members, because the law does not prohibit the payment of the governor and lieutenant governor's utilities as a benefit in lieu of government housing, because CUC has just confirmed that Governor Torres has only received the utility benefit for one official residence at a time, and once again, because the House failed to provide any supporting evidence for this article before you, I respectfully submit that the House has failed to prove this article by clear and convincing evidence. And as such, your only answer for this article should be no. Thank you.
Thank you, Consul Ogun. And I now like to move forward to the next article. If you wish, you may call your witness.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, at this time, we call our next witness to the stand, Ms. Glenna Palacios.
And what is this article reference to?
This article is in reference to Article 2, which is misuse of government funds, theft. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake then.
I do solemnly swear that the testimony I shall give is the truth. I shall give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
We good? Thank you, Ms. Palacios. Welcome back to the Senate. Counsel, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Welcome, Ms. Palacios. Thank you for your patience. May you please state your name for the record? Let's turn this.
Glenna Sekisa Palacios.
Ms. Palacios, were you working for the Office of the Governor in 2018?
That's correct.
What was your position at that time?
At the time, I was serving as the governor's senior policy advisor.
So as a senior policy advisor, did you ever travel on behalf of the CNMI government?
Yes, I did.
And you did travel on or around April of 2018, correct?
That's correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about that trip that you took?
So I went to Oregon and to Alaska on official travel.
And what was the public purpose of the travel?
For the Oregon piece?
So you had more than one public purpose on this trip?
That's correct.
Okay. Before we get into the trip, who else went on that trip with you?
Traveling with me was Governor Torres, Joey Cruz, and former Special Assistant to the Administration, Ms. Shirley Camacho Gomero.
And you mentioned there are multiple purposes of the trip, correct?
That's correct.
All right. So your first stop was where?
Our first stop was in Oregon, Portland, Oregon.
And what was the purpose of stopping in Oregon?
We stopped by Oregon to attend the memorial service for Bishop Camacho that was coordinated and put together by members of our residents that are living in Oregon.
And Bishop Camacho is a member of the CNMI community, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And if I may add, in addition
Please
to the memorial service for the bishop, we also had an offsite meeting with the Western Regional Director for ODLCC.
Okay, we'll get to that. All right. I'd first like to direct your attention to what has been pre-marked as Exhibit G. Can you please take a look at the first page? Can you describe what is that document?
Sure. So this is a front page booklet of the memorial mass for Bishop Camacho.
And the date?
That was held at St. Joseph Catholic Church on April 28, 2018
Where?
in Salem, Oregon.
Thank you. Excuse me. Okay. If you can turn the page for the exhibit, can you please just describe what you see on the first page?
So I see Governor Torres with the priest and other individuals
Okay.
in front of the chapel.
And if you turn the page one more time, I actually put these pictures up on the PowerPoint slide for everyone's convenience. Can you please describe the left picture?
The left picture is a photo of some members of our residents who are living there who attended the memorial mass with Governor Torres and First Lady Diane walking in with the offertory.
Okay. That's
During the
actually the right
offertory.
picture, correct?
Yes.
The picture on the right. Okay. And the picture on the left?
Oh.
On the screen.
Sorry,
No problem.
my
Oh.
eyes are not
I
that sharp to
apologize.
see what's on the screen.
Sorry. Yes. Whatever works better for you.
This one?
You're looking at Exhibit G5.
G5. Okay, so the photo is shows Governor Torres, and I attended this memorial service. I know that during this photo actually shows Governor Torres delivering or doing the reading during the mass.
Okay.
And if I remember correctly, it may have been the first reading, part of the mass ceremony.
Thank you, Ms. Palacios. Mr. President, at this time, I'd like to move Exhibit G into evidence.
Okay.
So move. And a little housekeeping, I realized that I didn't specifically move for the rest of the evidence that I presented earlier. If I can just move for all of those evidence to be admitted as well. I can give you the letters H, I, and L. May I proceed?
Proceed.
Thank you. Okay, I'm now handing you what has been pre-marked as Exhibit F. One moment, please.
Clerk, before I just to clarification. You got it. Council, you still have the floor.
Okay, thank you. All right, so after the ceremonial mass with Bishop Camacho, did you and Governor Torres travel to another location?
Yes, we did.
Where did you guys travel to?
We traveled to Alaska.
To Alaska. And what was the purpose of your travel to Alaska?
My travel to Alaska was actually, I was on an exploration assignment for potential opportunity for the CNMI, and also did a 3-day crash course on the emerging commercial launch vehicle market for equatorial orbits.
What does that mean?
So I did a site tour of
Okay.
the Alaska Aerospace Pacific Seaport
I see.
complex, and met with the president and CEO, who provided a crash course. I call it a 3-day crash course,
Mhm.
having no knowledge about the commercial launch vehicle market that was emerging at the time.
I see. And to be clear, Alaska Aerospace wanted to bring that market to the CNMI, correct?
That's correct.
And so they invited you to visit their facility in
Yes.
Alaska? And they invited Governor Torres as well, right?
Yes.
Did Governor Torres end up meeting with the Alaskan Aerospace?
Yeah. So I went to we went to Alaska together, although Governor went to another part of Alaska to meet with, my understanding was he met with Senator Lisa Murkowski,
Mhm.
while I went to Kodak Island to do a site visit of
I
their
see.
complex.
And there's a connection between Alaska Aerospace and Senator Murkowski, correct?
That's to my understanding.
Did
Yes.
In fact, Senator Murkowski was the one who introduced Governor Torres to the Alaska Aerospace.
Yes.
So that's how this all connects.
Yes.
Okay. I'm handing you what has been marked as Exhibit E. Can you please identify this document?
So this is a document dated March 8, 2008, from Governor Torres to Mr. Craig Campbell, President and CEO of Alaska Aerospace.
Okay. And that's basically inviting you guys over to visit the facility, correct?
That's correct.
And you guys did, in fact, go and visit the facility?
Yes.
And around what time was that?
This was on May. We departed Portland, Oregon on March 30th and traveled over to Alaska, arriving in Alaska on the same day.
Okay. And if you look at the screen in front of you, you could see a few pictures taken from these exhibits. If I'm not mistaken, one is for from Shirley Ogumoro's report, which is exhibit, excuse me. B. And the other one is an Instagram post pre-marked as exhibit M. Can you please identify on the left who is with Senator Murkowski?
Governor Torres and First Lady Diane Torres.
Okay. And this is in Alaska, correct?
Yes.
And then on the right, can you explain those pictures, please?
So that picture is actually a photo that was taken while Ms. Shirley Ogomora and I were at the complex for our on-site tour of the Alaskan airspace.
Okay. Thank you. At this time, Your Honor, I'd like to move these two exhibits into evidence as well. Right. So once you were done with Alaska, did you go back to the CNMI?
And no, we went back to Oregon for our offsite meeting with the Western Regional Director of the Office of Defense Community Cooperation,
Who was that?
Mr. Gary Corbar.
Mr. Gary Corbara. I'm handing you what has been marked as Exhibit F. If you can please take a look at that. Can you please describe what is the top photo?
The top photo?
Yes, please.
So the top photo is a photo of myself, Ms. Ogomoro, Governor Torres, and Mr. Gary Corobara. And this photo was taken at a high hop restaurant where we held our meeting, where we had our meeting.
Okay. What exactly does Mr. Corobara do? How is he important to the CNMI?
So Mr. Corobara is the program manager for the Office of Defense Community Cooperation. And he oversees, our area, CNMI, Guam, providing the much needed support that's needed to communities that are impacted by DoD projects and programs.
I see. And how does he give that support? How are ways that they provide support?
Funding support.
Okay. And did you guys discuss funding at that
Yes.
meeting?
So this meeting was actually part of our ongoing engagement at the time with Mr. Kobara, in support of the governor's initiative to provide funding support so that the CNMI can have the ability to assess the entire CNMI baseline conditions and also to determine all the military impacts that it has, as is more particularly on the island of Tinian and inclusive of Saipan and Rhoda, which the military also have, conduct trainings here. So basically that was part of, this meeting was part of advancing the governor's efforts and, providing an opportunity for the CNMI to be able to provide thorough assessment of our infrastructure. And, subsequently, we did receive grant funding in the amount of $3 million to allow the governor to develop resilient island sustainable management plan, which the governor will be rolling out in the coming weeks.
Wow. So the meeting that you had with Mr. Kurobara, would you describe that as a successful one?
Yes, absolutely.
And how much did you say it brought in again for the CNMI?
A little over $3 million.
Thank you, Ms. Palacios. Now, would you say that your public purpose was served when you went to Oregon initially and visited with and attended the ceremonial mass for Bishop Camacho?
Yes.
And when you went to Alaska, weren't you traveling for the purpose of meeting with a potential investor for the CNMI?
Yes.
And on your way back, when your stop in Oregon, there was another public purpose, correct?
Absolutely
And
correct.
that was visiting with Mr. Kuwabara.
That's correct.
And as a result of this trip, you're telling me that the government received millions in government and federal funding.
That's correct.
Okay. So in your opinion, Ms. Palacios, would you say that this travel was made for a public purpose?
Yes, that's correct. In my opinion, it was a public purpose to include the initial stopover in Oregon.
And did this trip benefit the CNMI in your opinion?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Palacios. No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Council, and thank you, Ms. Palacios. This time, I'm going to be entertaining a question posed by the members of the Senate, and kindly please submit those in written form to the chair. And there's one from Senator Edith de Leon Guerrero. What is equatorial? This is the language we use every day. Equatorial orbit and what is this? And anyway, what is the trip to Alaska? How is it beneficial to the CNMI? And what significant benefit would it bring to the CNMI's economy? And what is the status of this industry?
Thank you for that question, Senator De Leon Guerrero. So to my understanding, the Alaska Aerospace Pacific Spaceport Complex is actually a very successful industry in Alaska and emerging in the U.S. And at the time, the Alaska Aerospace was actually, looking to expand over to the Sinimay. Initially, they looked at, location here in Saipan, and because the location that they have identified at the time, unfortunately, had a lot of FUDs, unexploded ordnance. So subsequently, they turned over to Tinian to look at a location there for them to bring this industry over to the Sinimay. So that the proposal was really to develop a small-scale spaceport facility that supports the emerging commercial small satellite launch vehicle market for equatorial orbits.
Okay.
And to answer the second question, in terms of potential economic impact to the Sinimay, it's actually a booming industry at that time. And I understand, if I can remember correctly, it was just about 3 weeks ago when I was just doing some reading, I came across an article where the U.S. Congress actually appropriated about $11 million to support this industry in Alaska. So it's a booming industry. It's becoming an important economic driver in the U.S., particularly in Alaska, and creating a lot of jobs and education opportunities in the aerospace sector.
Okay. Was there any other non-government understanding that you went there for a government travel, right? Public purpose. Do you have any knowledge if there's anything that was attended other than that of a public function in Oregon?
In Oregon, so we did attend the bishop's memorial mass.
Okay.
And did that serve any public purpose? In my opinion, it did. I think we need to remind ourselves that, constituents are not just limited to those of us that are living here in the Sinimay. We do have members of our community that are living across the mainland and even in foreign countries. And those members of our community, remain, our
got it.
people.
Noted, Ms. Palacios. I think I know where this is going. So, is there a defense concern with regards, or to the CNMI with regards to this equatorial initiative?
I'm sorry, can
Is
you
there any
please?
Department of Defense concerned with regards to this equatorial initiative that is being broached? Being considered. Was there any concern?
So thank you for that question, President. As you may recall, back in June 8, subsequent to our visit to Alaska, we did receive a courtesy visit by General Ken Rosbach. He was the commander at the time for the Alaska North American Aerospace Defense Command region. So in addition to the potential economic opportunity that Alaskan Aerospace was looking to provide here in the Sinimay, this particular issue also does have some concerns with our national security.
Thank you for a very well articulated answer. Um, um, okay, here's another question to you, Ms. Palacios, from Senator Paul. How many total days was the trip, inclusive of the two stopovers in this particular sequence of trips?
Okay. So,
And that
Let me
is
just-
Alaska and Oregon, Alaska, Oregon. No?
for first stop in Oregon, we arrived on the 28th, and we left Oregon headed over to Alaska on April 30th. Subsequently, we returned back from Alaska to Oregon on May 3rd.
Yeah. Was there any? Obviously, I'm going to ask this question, but but this particular is, I'm going to not ask it because that particular item has already been discussed and was never asked. So I ask that we move forward with any other questions. Being none. Um, Thank you, Ms. Palacios, for your presentation this afternoon, your participation. Council, if you have any remarks before we move to the next article.
Yes, this is my only witness for the article, but I do have a short summary.
Thank you. Thank you again, Ms. Palacios. And you may wish, if you wish to go, you may do so.
Thank you.
Mrs. Masi.
Thank you, Ms. Palacios.
Council.
Thank you, Mr. President. Honorable members of the Senate, Article 2 alleges multiple counts of theft against the governor, but as you have just seen, it leaves out key information that does not support this claim. For example, that first count of the article alleges that governor used public funds to attend a political campaign event in the state of Oregon on or about April 30, 2018. And to be clear, governor was in Oregon at that time. However, as his senior policy advisor, Mrs. Palacios, just testified, he did not travel to Oregon for a political event. Rather, he stopped by Oregon on his way to Alaska in order to pay his respects to the late Bishop Thomas A. Camacho and attend the memorial mass. Right after, Governor and his team flew to Alaska in order to meet with a potential investor and visit its facility with the goal of bringing economic growth to the CNMI. Notably, Governor Torres was introduced to this investor through Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. And on the way back from Alaska, Governor and his team stopped by Oregon once again to meet with Mr. Gary Cabrera and the Department of Defense with the goal of increasing the CNMI's chances of availing to all these federal grants. And senators, as you just heard from Ms. Palacios, these meetings worked. They brought in millions of dollars to the CNMI. And so there's no doubt today that this trip was made for a public purpose. Consistent with Commonwealth law, there is no issue with Governor Torres visiting any constituents while he is representing the CNMI and traveling for a legitimate government purpose. And while the House was fully aware of these public purposes of this April 2018 trip, it did not mention any of them in their articles. And so we can only assume that they did the same for each count in this article. Once again, there's also no clear and convincing evidence to support this article before you. This article, you must vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Ogun. And the chair, would like to move to the next article as
Mr. President, may I have a short recess, please?
short recess.
Yeah, just.
Okay, we're back into session and council.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Please proceed.
In order
And-
to address Article 5, negligence during crisis, Governor Torres calls to the stand his next witness, Ms. Priscilla Iakopo. Iakopo. I apologize for missing up your name.
Clerk, can you please make sure that you turn on your mic so that the witness can hear?
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. State your name, please. I
Priscilla Martita Iakopo,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly
that
swear
the testimony I shall give
that the
is-
testimony I shall give
is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Let me take your seat, Ms. Iakopo, and welcome to the Senate. Thanks for being here. Council, you may proceed.
Thank you. It's now good afternoon. May you please state your name for the record?
My name is Priscilla Martita Iakopo.
So Miss Iakopo, when it's red, it's on, okay? Can you please state your occupation?
I am the managing director for the Marianas Visitors Authority.
Okay. And how long have you worked with the Marianas Visitors Authority?
I am approaching 3 years.
Thank you. It's my understanding that one of MVA's responsibilities is to promote the CNMI. Is that true?
Yes, that's correct. We promote and develop the CNMI as a premier destination of choice throughout the world while providing maximum quality of life for our people.
And can you just explain for the benefit of the Senate how some ways that MVA does that?
It is our duty to organize, it is our duty to promote and organize programs. We also promote our indigenous cultures, arts and crafts. We improve foreign communications with visitors through our offshore offices. We collect, compile, and analyze visitor arrival data, just to name a few.
When promoting the CNMI, do you also sponsor what are called influencers?
Yes, as part of promotions, we actually organize and conduct events. And I'm sure you guys are probably aware, these are signature events such as Taste of the Marianas, Saipan Marathon, Tinian Hot Pepper Festival, and so on and so forth. We also advertise our destination through various media outlets, social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. And one of the marketing strategies as well, as far as promoting, is through familiarization tours. And this is where we invest in influencers, travel agencies, bloggers, to visit the Marianas and experience what we have to offer. So that way they have a better understanding of our destination and how to better sell the product.
And so, can you explain a little more about how that works? Like how do they promote the CNMI?
So it really depends on the type of content, the length of the familiarization project. One thing that I can recall more recently was a fam tour that we did last year, and this coincided with the travel bubble agreement signing with South Korea. And what we did was the MVA invested in a little bit over 30 fam tour participants, which consisted of travel agencies, whether they're CEOs or managers, media, influencers, and such. And so what they did was during that time, they were here for a minimum of 7 days. Some were here for 14 days. And we had them visit the various attractions, and whether that would be at the Marpi, Maniagaha, we also had them visited Tinian and Rota.
And so that way they have a better understanding so they could go back and produce those films, whether they would advertise it in their own social media accounts or if it's through the media. Obviously, we get exposure on that as well.
Okay, so I'm an old man and not too familiar with the social medias. What you're telling me is that sometimes you hire influencers to promote CNMI by making content. This content can include YouTube videos.
Yes, that's correct. And
Okay.
again, it really just depends on the influencer themselves and what type of social media that they focus on. And YouTube is one of them as well.
Director, would you say this is a common practice?
Yes, it is a common practice. As travel trends changes, we want to attract influencers that specialize in the different contents, and because of their specialty, whether it would be specializing in diving, in eating, which is food, weddings and such, because the reason why MBA invests in them is because of their large number of subscribers or followers.
Okay, and I'm just going to ask the question, is it an effective strategy, do you think?
Yes, it is. A lot of potential travelers look and rely on different platforms, whatever media outlets or social media, when they choose their next vacation.
And so does the cost of any influencer, is it constant? Like, is it the same cost for any influencer? Or if not, what does it the cost depend on?
The cost really depends, like I mentioned, on the content, the number of packs, the length of stay. Normally, the MBA actually pays for the entire accommodation, whether that would be inclusive of airfare, hotels, meals, and at times, and as part of the MBA membership program, we actually share with our members, and some of them would actually provide in-kind donations and help reduce the cost of MBA. So, for example, we could have some of our hotelier partners say, okay, we want to cover, this fam tour in this particular day. And then, of course, in return, the influencers will film their hotels as part of giving back their donation.
And so the main goal for these videos and hiring these influencers is to expose the CNMI to the rest of the world and hopefully attract tourists as well, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. As you're aware, the House essentially charges Governor Torres in this article for participating in the Deer Meat for Dinner videos that were taken in the CNMI, throughout the CNMI. And they're claiming that Governor Torres neglected
Council,
his duties.
talk into the mic, please.
Sorry, my apologies. In Article 5, the House is essentially charging Governor Torres for participating in the Deer Meat for Dinner videos. And they're claiming that he neglected his duties when he went and did this, labeling it as a vacation, etc. So I want to talk to you about this Deer Meat for Dinner. How did you become aware of this project?
This was an opportunity that was shared with the MBA. I'm not sure of the date, but it could be around June 2020, where the governor had actually shared with MBA, including myself and a few board members, that there's a famous YouTuber that was interested in coming into the CNMI.
Okay. And did he instruct you to become a part of this project?
No, I just want to share that MBA is governed by 9 board members. And with going back to what I had stated is that when we had met with Governor Torres, not all the board members were there. So it was my responsibility to share this opportunity with them. We actually held a board meeting with other agenda items as well, and it was approved during that time.
And how did you support the Deer Meat for Dinner project?
How MBA supported, as approved by the MBA Board of Directors. We actually provided, it was originally approved for $59,000, and that consisted of the charter boats, meals and supplies. But however, actual expenses were a little over 49,000.
Okay. And is this a typical thing that MVA does to promote the CNMI, invest in projects like this?
Yes, if we can all remember, during this time in the summer of 2020, there was a worldwide campaign of stay at home. And just like other destinations, maintaining online presence was very critical, because not only did we not have direct international flights as they were suspended, the traveling public were not too confident to travel at the time. And so the only way that we could remind and stay on top of the minds of our traveling public was through online presence, which consisted of producing various videos. And we actually shared that with our offshore offices, our social media accounts, and we actually participate in various virtual travel shows, such as the Pacific Asia Travel Association.
That's great. So you guys helped out with the project for Deer Meat for Dinner, and throughout 2020, Deer Meat for Dinner visited the various islands. And what product did you get out of the sponsorship that MVA gave?
Throughout that time, he produced about 20 videos.
Sorry, Miss Echo.
I'm sorry.
When you say who do you mean?
I'm sorry, Dear Meat for Dinner, which who is Robert Arrington.
Okay.
He produced 20 videos, and the last time I checked in regards to the number of views was about 35 million views. And so if you base that on exposure value calculation, and from what I can recall, my conversation with Robert Arrington was that for every view, it costs $35. And so if you times the 35 million with $35, it equates in the billions of exposure value.
So what you're telling us is that the Deer Meat for Dinners, the Deer Meat for Dinner videos gave the CNMI, how much was that?
If I'm not mistaken, my calculation is correct. 35 million times 35 is about 1.2 billion.
A $1.2 billion value in ad exposure.
Correct.
That's what the Deer Meat for Dinner project resulted in.
Correct.
And so, in your opinion, do you think that Deer Meat for Dinner sponsorship was a successful one?
Yes. And the reason why I say successful is because, again, our goal at the time was to maintain online presence. And had we not participate in this opportunity, the traveling public might have probably forgot about us. They would lose destination confidence. And if we were to restore that destination confidence, it would probably cost the CNMI a larger amount. In addition to that, on February 2020, we actually conducted a FAM tour with Japan, which was called a Marianas Creators Camp in Saipan. We actually spent about $68,000 for this FAM tour, and in return, we received about $1.8 million in exposure value. So it really goes to show that the expenses for the deer meat for dinner was far less than this Marianas Creators Camp. In addition to that, through my conversation with Mr. Arrington, he did share that Guam knew that he was here in the CNMI, and Guam was asking him to go and also take the opportunity and explore Guam. So the success rate, or if this was successful, yes, it was.
Compared to the other sponsorships, how successful would you characterize this Deer Meat for Dinner campaign?
Can you probably give me, are you telling me 1 to 10? And
Well, compared to the other ones, so like, is it at the top of your list? Is it at the bottom?
I would consider it that it is at the top
Okay.
for the number exposure value that we receive and based on the expense actually paid.
I'm handing you now what has been marked as Exhibit K. Exhibit K has a number of pages, but if you could please just describe what's on the front page.
On the front page, it is titled Wild Devil Horn Bull, Catch, Clean, Cook, Pagan, Northern Mariana Islands.
Okay, so this is one of the YouTube videos that were produced from Deer Meat for Dinner as a result of your sponsorship, correct?
Correct.
Do they mention the CNMI anywhere there besides the title?
Yes, there is a short, brief description of what the video is probably about. And on the very bottom, it says, if you are interested in the Northern Mariana Islands, please go to https www.mymarianas.com.
And that's Marianas Visitors Authority's website, correct?
Correct.
Okay. How many subscribers does Rob have on there for his YouTube channel?
According to this document, it has 3.02 million subscribers.
Is that usual for an influencer to have that many subscribers?
It's in my opinion, it's not. I'm sorry. What was your question again?
I guess compared to the other influencers MVA has sponsored, does Robert Arrington have a similar influence, or is it more, or do you think it's less?
Robert Arrington has more subscribers than other influencers we have actually done in the past.
And how many views does that first video have?
Approximately 2.8 million views.
But that's not truly accurate though, right? Because every day those views keep increasing, right?
Correct. It could.
So that $1 billion amount is actually increasing as we speak in ad exposure value?
Yes, it could. For every added view, the exposure value increases as well.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to enter Exhibit K into evidence. This is just an example of the videos and the amount of views that they get. All right. I just have one more question for you, Ms. Iakopo. Do you think that the Deer Meat for Dinner sponsorship served a public purpose?
I believe so. At the time, there were many unknowns of COVID-19. We're talking back the summer of 2020. I believe there was also during the time period an absence of the vaccines. A lot of destinations were shut down. Our international flights, direct flights from our primary markets were suspended. And again, just like most, if not all other destinations, we're also trying to maintain online presence. And the only way to do that was to create up-to-date videos and make sure that the traveling public really does not forget about your destination.
Thank you. No further questions.
You're done. Okay.
No further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Iakopo. Now it's the portion where we pose the question from the members via, and I have one from Senator Teresita Santos. Did the MVA board approve funding for the deer meat for dinner promotion? If so, how much? If not, who paid for the promotion?
The FBA Board of Directors approved a budget not to exceed $59,000. However, actual expenses were about $49,800.
Okay. Thank you. So 59 approve, 49.8 actual.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. How many visitors to the CNMI were generated directly by those videos? And again, this question is being asked by Senator Santos.
The number of visitors, which resulted based on the deer meat for dinner, I would actually have to refer back that at the time we did not have direct flights, international flights. I'm not even sure if we had daily flights from United. But I just really want to point out that for every promotion or marketing activity that we do, you cannot really guarantee the number of arrivals that actually come in pertaining to whatever marketing activity. What I do want to share is we actually did received a lot of interest. We did receive emails basically asking, what are the travel entry requirements? Do you have to be vaccinated? Do you have to quarantine? And so these are the questions that were asked by MBA, and we did respond them and provide them those. But to answer your question as far as actual arrival numbers based on the deer meat for dinner, unfortunately, I cannot provide that.
Thank you, Ms. Iakopo. And here's another question from Jude. Okay, just for consistency, what is an influencer?
I guess if an influencer is someone who specializes in a particular program. And probably what I would say is, like, let's say you have a celebrity who's also considered an influencer who uses social media to attract followers or subscribers. And I guess, it influences followers to say, hey, if this celebrity went to the CNMI and explored and experienced all this, it makes you feel that you want to also do the same. And so that's why we invest in them.
Okay, and as a follow-up question, do you believe in your capacity that this methodology of advertising in this time and age where there's a lot of uncertainties until just recently that we reopened is the quote-unquote the most trendy way of advertisement?
Yes, that's correct. I believe social media goes a long way. It affects and targets various age groups, male or female, and it just really depends on what you are really interested in.
Okay, thank you. Is there, and this next question is from Senator De Leon Guerrero. Is there an agreement with a media influencer, Deer Meat for Dinner, per se? But other than what you mentioned earlier, is there an agreement with media influencer Deer Meat for Dinner?
There was no contractual agreement. The only thing that we did was just to provide the charter meals and supplies.
Okay. Who benefits from this I'm not sure if this is a word, but I'm going to read it as written, monetization of this media influencer visit to Pagan and other northern islands.
Can you probably rephrase the
Who
question?
benefits from this particular program with this influencer visits to Pagan? Do you believe in your capacity as, is there any pecuniary or monetary or whatever benefits that comes out of this? That's the question posted by Senator.
Well, the benefits that come out from Deer Meat for Dinner is the fact that we continue to maintain on the top minds of the traveling public. And like I mentioned, if we did not have an opportunity such as Robert Arrington with 3.2 million subscribers, I'm pretty sure that, people would have not known about us or forget about us. And through his videos, probably there are people who actually do know that the cinema actually exists. It could be simple as, going off island and they ask you, where are you from? They'll be like, where is that? And so at least this is one media outlet that we could really share that we actually do exist and we are an American soil.
Okay, thank you. Can you be able to translate exposure value as far as this particular mode of advertisement to the CNMI? Can you be able to comfortably translate?
Are you referring to the
This, the
Dear Meat for
yeah, we're
Dinner?
just sticking
Okay.
with the
Okay.
influencer.
So I recall my conversation with Robert Arrington, and I did ask him, what would the exposure value be? And he mentioned to me that for every view, it is $35. And so with the approximately 35 million views, you times that by 35 dollars, and so that would give you the exposure value amount.
Thank you. And here's one from a question from Senator Paul Manglonia. So, do you have any issues or problem with what's mentioned in the articles of impeachment, the 550 spent by the government or by Governor Torres on air and sea travel to the Northern Islands? Is that the best use of MBA promotion to the CNMI?
I honestly cannot speak in regards to the $500,000 or whatever. I can really only speak in regards to MBA's expenses.
Okay, that's fair.
And if I may, the reason why is because MBA is an autonomous agency. We don't go through the Department of Finance for any procurement. We actually have one in-house. So I don't have the documents channeling through my office and such, so I can't answer based on that amount.
Thank you, Ms. Iakopo. Here's another question from Senator Edith Leon Guerrero. Can a tourist travel to the Northern Island as we speak? What amenities are existing in response to the Deer Meat for Dinner promotions? I guess, to be fair with what you mentioned earlier, as a result of that influencer and the the exposure that on YouTube, do you, in your capacity as MBA, do you anticipate any tourists hitting that I want to visit Northern Ireland button as a result of that exposure?
I want to refer back when we were preparing the Robert Arrington to film the Northern Islands at the time. I actually consulted with the mayor of Northern Islands office as we wanted to find out what boats or forms of transportation is available to the Northern Islands, and he did share some of that. And from what I recall, there were two vendors who could provide that. If tourists were to if tourists were interested in going to the Northern Islands, I would actually provide them that same avenue of information. I would actually, if there is a huge interest, I would actually make a recommendation to my board and say, hey, we have interested tourists who want to visit. Maybe this is something that, we can come here to the legislature and ask for help and, provide MVA with the adequate resources to really promote the islands, the Northern Islands. Because one thing that I do want to share is that all of our islands are unique. You go to Tinian, you go to Rhoda, you experience different things. And so I'm sure that the Northern Islands would also provide the same.
And before I ask, I'm going to ask one more question, but we want to circle back to your presentation here because you're always going to talk MBA exposure and all that because that's your responsibility. So I just wanted to note that. Council, before I ask the next question, did you want to add on to that or?
Yes, please. I just wanted to follow up with that last question. Director, to be clear, the videos weren't just for the Northern Islands, right?
That's correct.
What other islands did the Deer Meat for Dinner promote while he was here?
He also went to Rhoda. He was also here on Saipan and Tinian as well.
Okay, and if I understand correctly, most of those videos are over 1 million views at this point.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Council. Yeah, thanks for asking that. Do you feel that MVA failed to continue advertising the cinema despite the closure of its borders?
In my opinion, no. And the reason why I say that is because we wanted to restore our primary markets, which are Korea, Japan, China. Unfortunately, we do know the situation with China. And so our primary focus was and as well as the proximity of these primary markets, we wanted to regain and restore tourists from these markets. And what we focused on was trying to secure a travel bubble agreement with South Korea. And the reason why we started with South Korea was because they were much more open-minded and considering that this travel bubble agreement can have both countries enter and actually seek pleasure. Because at the time, like I mentioned, it was to stay at home. We were tired of staying home. We wanted a fresh breath of air. And because of that, we meaning the board, we invested in this travel bubble agreement, and we had built a program called Tourism Resumption Investment Plan. And considering that other destinations did not have any travel bubble agreement, we did not know how to start tourism again, as tourism here in the CNMI is our primary economic driver. And that was the focus.
Thank you, Director Iakopo. There's no further question from the members. Can you submit your question to the chair so I can ask before I dismiss the witness?
Well, Mr. President,
Sintupo,
privilege.
No,
Yes.
Sintupo, if it's going to be direct question, we need to follow protocol and go with the order. So
Well,
that we're
before
moving.
we dismiss the witness, Mr. President,
Are
I just
you-
want a clarification so that if the rule does allow me, then I can further ask. It was raised by Senator Santos earlier, and there wasn't any objection. It's Rule 24C.
Council, can you? I don't have the rules in front of me right now. What is the question, Senator Poe?
Okay, Senator Santos raised this earlier, and Rule 24C says after the completion of questioning by the parties, and this is assuming there's a prosecutor and the defense, any senator present desiring to question a witness shall be permitted to do so. If a party objects to a senator's question, then the presiding hearing officer shall rule on that objection. My point is this: there's no requirement here in writing the questions, because, Mr. President, sometimes when you're questioning the witness, there are many things that come to your mind, and if you have to write it, it distracts you, and it's difficult. And so now it's like this body depends on you to do the follow-up, and it's not fair because there's no prosecutor, who normally the prosecutor is the one to go back and forth, just like Attorney Ogun goes back and forth. And we're
Okay,
handicapped because there's no prosecutor,
Senator
there's
Paul?
no evidence, and I want to ask questions, follow up, but I have to write it, and it's hard.
Okay, I understand.
So the rule, I'm just
No,
saying, my question on the rule, Mr.
No,
President,
Senator Paul, hold on. Nangas, every time I spoke, you try to
I
speak
have
over
the
me.
floor, Mr. President.
I understand, but I'll take the floor back from you.
Okay, so you can take it. It's your floor.
Okay, thank you. You're done. You're done with the question?
You wanted to comment, so after you comment, I'm going to raise my hand, and I have further questions.
We're done with this rhetorical insinuation of prosecutors and all that. Well, I understand where you're going.
No, Mr. President, I just
but
wanted to ask
Senator
if
Paul,
we...
you're done. You're finished. I'm taking the mic away from you. We're moving to the next article. Senator Santos, if it's a question to the council or to me, I will allow. Okay, I will ask. And this is going to be addressed to to Director Iakopo. Were there any of other expenditures incurred for the deer meat for dinner promotion, in your understanding?
Aside from the one that I mentioned,
Yes.
I do recall that we actually hosted Mr. Robert Arrington, and that's just part of our hospitality. In MBA, we had actually we hosted them with a dinner and followed by a business meeting, so that way we could get a better understanding on what his exploration would be and what expectations we would get from his videos.
Okay, so the question is, there is that within the context of 49,000?
Correct.
Okay, can you, and maybe this question can also, counsel, since you represent the impeached official, you can chime in on this particular next question, such as the use of DPS, Northern Ireland Mayor's Office, the LNR, et cetera, et cetera.
Are you asking if there's
Yes.
additional expenses?
Yes.
Mr. President, I respectfully submit that that is the House's burden. It's the House's burden to prove these allegations.
Noted. Thank you, Clown
They're
Council.
not here.
Okay, we're moving to the next item. Just be reminded that I've asked that we go on a recess at 2:00. It's already 1:35. And we are going to allow for another presentation, if you're ready to allow for another presentation of another article, and then to which at the time that 2:00 hits, we're going to recess until they announce time and day.
Mr. President, if I may suggest,
Come again, Council?
I actually have a summary to wrap up this article, and I anticipate that it would take up almost until 2. So after this,
Proceed.
it would be a good time to end.
Proceed.
Okay.
If there's any other,
This is all I
Director,
have.
are you done with Director Iakopo?
Yes, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Director Iakopo. You are hereby excused from further, I'm running out of words here. Testimony, and you may, if you wish to go, you may do so. Thank you. Council, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Honorable members of the Senate, in Article 5, the House essentially charges the governor for participating in these deer meat for dinner promotional videos of the CNMI, claiming that he neglected his duties when he embarked on a promotional expedition to the Northern Islands with his family and friends. I first have to note that in this article, the House does not cite any specific law that the governor violates. And so for that reason alone, your vote has to be a no for this. It doesn't say what law he violated. However, as you just heard from the MVA director, these Deer Meat for Dinner YouTube videos also served a valid public purpose, and that is to promote the CNMI at a time when no one else could during the COVID pandemic. On the screen is just a few examples of the many videos that were created out of this Deer Meat for Dinner event. And keep in mind that not only did we get a significant amount of ad exposure, but the success of this program was actually commended by the House of Representatives, who gave Mr. Rob Arrington a resolution thanking him for all the work he did in promoting our islands. Those 19 videos, when added together, create 21,659,495 views. And that number continues to grow each day. And as the director just explained, this just increases the ad exposure value of this project more and more for the CNMI. When converted to the ad exposure value, that is $351 million. $351 million was created for the Marianas. It was a $351 million value for the Marianas that it got. And so if we take that $351 million and you subtract the $550,000 that the House alleges was spent in total, and even if you subtract the initial amount of $59,000 that MVA said was a sponsorship, that still leaves a value of $350 million, $391,000 in ad exposure value for the CNMI that we got based on these videos. And please remember that this number can only increase because people every day will keep seeing these videos and learn more about the Marianas. And as you saw, each of those videos had a link to our Marianas website. The director already testified that she's gotten a number of inquiries since the videos passed. And I can also state truthfully that since those videos were published by Deer Meat for Dinner, the amount of boating registration for the CNMI quadrupled. These reasons alone are success, are an example of the success that the Deer Meat for Dinner campaign did. So members of the jury, not only was the governor's participation and expenses related to Deer Meat for Dinner a valid public purpose, but they were made to promote every island of the CNMI, Saipan, Tinian, Rhoda, Northern Islands, Pagan, Mog. All of these videos are available for the world to see right now and have hit at least 6 figures in views. Now add that to the fact that we generated over $351 million in ad exposure just on this one campaign. And of course, once again, the House has failed to provide any of the supporting evidence to support their allegations against Governor Torres in this article. And so again, honorable members of the Senate, I respectfully submit that the only answer that you can give to this article is no. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Mr. President, if I may respectfully suggest that this is a good ending point. I don't want to proceed with my next witness and with this short amount of time.
Okay, as indicated earlier, that we need to recess, in this case, before 2, no? We still have 2 more articles before us in which we're going to entertain. And when we resume on Monday at 10 a.m.
Yes, Mr. President.
And at this time, I move that we recess until Monday at 10 a.m. in the Senate chamber. Thank you and good afternoon.